This is the Equally Yoked Show. Honored to be with you tonight. Look, we're looking at a lot of what is being shown on with the case that we're looking at. This is the Charlie Kirk case. And so stick with me. I want to know your comments, your questions concerning this, because we're going to be looking at a few things here. Now, we haven't been covering because I wanted to gather as much data as possible. So first, we're going to basically start off with some of the things that we've been looking at, examining. And I've been watching this Charlie Kirk case closely, carefully. And the deeper that we go into these preliminary hearings, the more damning the evidence is. And as expected, we've seen more lies and more conspiracies because of the clips that have been circulated out of context. This is typical. But even people online who are trying to so desperately trash Charlie Kirk, his legacy, Erica Kirk, and of course, Turning Point USA. Now, people are saying that Tyler Robinson made contact with a TPUSA member and spinning it to make people believe that this was more than just someone who seemingly acted alone. But today was a big day because we were finally able to watch testimony of Lance Twiggs, one who has limited immunity but because of him testifying against Tyler Robinson with the state. Now, the theories about the bullet shell casings, where the shot was taken, exploding mic theory, which we'll get back to in a moment. New CCTV footage confirms that we've suspected what we've suspected all along. And the defense wants none of this evidence to be admitted because it is all too damning. Now, for those that are just joining the podcast, thanks so much for being here. We're going to be looking at all of this. And I just highly encourage you to stick with me, subscribe to the podcast, email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. And let's get all this situated here. Now, we're going to play a few pieces of tape here. We're going to try to help you follow along with the sort of timeline. Now, there's going to be a couple things that were from the first day of the preliminary hearings, the third day, second day. It might jump around here. And ask one lingering question. Where's Candace Owens? All of her hard work in creating a narrative that was conducted, creating a narrative that this was conducted by a foreign government. Maybe Mossad was involved, she was saying. Tyler Robinson wasn't even there. Her narrative quickly falls apart when real evidence is presented. She has questioned every part of this assassination, and it's okay to question. I think we all want to know how Tyler was radicalized, but even with his radicalization, he completed what his flesh so desired. Sin was crouching at his door, and he ignored every opportunity to run away from it. Did he get what he wanted? Momentarily, yes. But even Tyler Robinson, regretted this. We learned this from Lance Twiggs' testimony. Now, this is some of we're going to be looking at a lot here, and I highly recommend that you stick with us here. And I'm trying to figure out if the stream is are we all good, guys? Is the stream looking fancy? We're all good. It seems like my current bit rate is too low for streaming. I'm not sure if that's correct. Just trying to make sure that we're all good here before we continue. I think we are Up and running. Okay. I just needed to fix a few things, make sure everything was all good. Okay. Seems like we're all squared away. Okay. Now, guys, like the show, subscribe to the podcast. This is one of the highly this case, what we're witnessing here in this Charlie Kirk case is fascinating. Let's take a listen.
And here's the Kirk family statement. Every court proceeding serves as a painful reminder of his death and the loss that has irrevocably impacted our lives and the lives of his children. Andrew, you want transparency. You want the system to play out. You'll get cameras in the courtroom. I know you're not there, but watching this as a friend, how you feel?
Yeah, it's awful, honestly. Everybody, all the team, all the staff. I talked to a lot of people yesterday just here at campus, and it was like everybody was having a terrible day. It's like we're being forced to relive this. And so it's bittersweet. We want to see justice for Charlie. We want to see transparency. We want the public to be able to see this evidence. But for us, it's reliving one of the worst days that you can imagine. And my heart is completely with Erica and Charlie's parents, Rob and Kathy, as they have to navigate what can only be described as an excruciating experience being in that courtroom. And so I think mixed emotions, Bill. It's difficult.
You mentioned a reminder of his death and the loss that has irrevocably impacted our lives and lives of its children. I'm sorry, Bill, you might have already read that. I guess my mind has been going back to that day on September 11th of last year. And I have read that you said that you trust that justice will be done. Tell us more about that belief that it will turn out right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's what I will tell you is I've had so many countless behind-the-scenes conversations, whether that's with prosecutors that are unrelated to the case or people that just understand the way that this system's going to play out and the way this process is going to play out. And, you know, I've been told time and time again that the case here is overwhelming, that there's a ton of evidence regardless of how you look at it. And I do trust, if you look at the way Judge Graff is going about this, he's very deliberate, he's very disciplined, he's calling balls and strikes. I like some of what he does. I get frustrated at other things that he does, but I do see that everybody involved in this seems to be taking it very seriously. They're being very professional. And listen, we have a justice system that has to work, that has to be able to show sunlight is the best disinfectant, as they said. So that's why we've always been pro putting cameras in there, pro letting as much information and evidence out into the public as possible. And we see the evidence, and listen, he's innocent until proven guilty, and that's the process we have. And we're going to let it play out. But yeah, we have to trust that Charlie's going to get justice.
Right, and Erica wanted cameras in the courtroom, too. Just to paraphrase, at one point, she said, this was a very public murder of my husband. I want, we should continue to show the public what happened here. It must be exceedingly difficult for her to be there.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to Don Jr., Brandon Tatum, Jack Posobiec. We have so many friends that are in there, and her friends and family that decided to go to Utah to be with her, both inside the courtroom and outside. I decided it was better to be here with the team, and I'm grateful for that. I don't know how I would have reacted being in that courtroom, having to breathe the same air. I just don't know. And so I'm grateful to the support that she's received, both like I said, in the courtroom, but all around the country. It's been overwhelming yesterday. I can tell you it was really heartening in that way just to see all the support flooding in, both for Erica and the team.
Now, what we've also been hearing since the assassination, we were getting rumbles online of people saying, where are his parents? Where are his parents? We don't even know who they are. There's suspicions as to, his parents weren't even there at the event. However, because they're not really public figures, we now see who they are. And of course, looking back at the photos of the memorial, what was happening at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, they were there indeed. And so as we go down this trail, we begin to see that more evidence that is presented continues to disprove the Candace Owens narrative. And we'll ask that question again. Where's Candace? Just look back at her YouTube channel for a moment. She was going live every single day, at least 3 times out of the week, right? Streamed 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. We get streamed 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, basically, seemingly every single day. And a lot of the content that she covered with Charlie Kirk, this is her last post 13 days ago. This is prior to the preliminary hearings. Candace is silent. We aren't seeing a hint of Candace online. Now, is she cooking up a video that we don't know about? Is she building up this live stream to go, just double down? Just begin to double down on all the claims that she's made in order to keep her narrative alive? Because it's quickly falling apart. Very quickly. Most intense moment during the preliminary hearings is a reaction by the judge who's seen the 4K footage of Charlie Kirk being assassinated. Now, if you've seen their setup on campus, you've seen where they position their cameras, where Charlie Kirk's camera is typically positioned. And we can pull up a video clip just for the sake of establishing what is typically done. And during his campus debates, there is always typically, there's multiple camera positions, camera angles. Take this, for example. I mean, look how close this is to Charlie. Extremely close. No, we're not playing the audio there's no reason to play the audio. However, and so the 4K footage that you would see from the folks who actually are contracted to film these events, right? We can go to several videos of him speaking on campus. Here's another one. Most of these camera angles are mounted on the tabletop or directly near the table. And so what the judge would have seen, would have heard, would have captured the moment that Charlie Kirk was assassinated in 4K, not the phone footage that you see typically that you've seen online. That's not what the judge seen. And so we're going to go to a clip here, which I think is incredible to see the reaction from a judge who's trying to weigh this and balance this narrative put forth by the state, put forth by the defense of what evidence is to be admitted in order to move this case forward, which we might not see anything until 2027, possibly 2028. I don't know if it'll go that long because they need to select a jury pool that is not tainted with prejudice as they have been describing. And of course, tomorrow is the final day that will conclude the hearings, the preliminary hearings. And so let's look at this clip to show you the reaction. This is quite incredible. Let's take a listen.
Social media clips that moving, I don't know is the right word, but got a lot of attention was Judge Graff watching the explicit video and his reaction, which in two, what can you describe what that was like?
Yeah,
watching
actually,
those videos.
We have that clip here, Graham, if you want me to show it.
Yeah.
It's got
the
it's the same one you posted, Graham, on X, so it's got a music bed to it, but 56. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's wild to watch. It
Yeah,
really is.
I
Man.
was there. We all were there, and so every one of the videos that were graphic in nature were admitted as evidence, but both the state and the defense did not want it to be seen publicly due to the graphic nature of it, because we've all, well, social media, iPhone images of what happened to Charlie, but especially when the 4K videos were put in there. That was, yeah, that was a tough moment. That was a really tough moment.
Yeah. So
You
to
know,
be clear though, Graham, these were the videos that were rolling, like, of the
yeah,
event. These are event.
mhm,
These are the 4K cameras that
correct.
were around Charlie, and that were
Yeah,
submitted. That were handed over to authorities the moments after it happened, I guess. And so
yep.
they've never been publicly viewed.
Correct. Yes. And so, you know, those of us that were in the rows, I mean, the audio is playing, and we all know exactly when it happened. So, I mean, we've all heard the moment, the question Charlie was asked and his beginning to answer. And so, I looked around, kind of my left and my right, and everybody kind of had their hand kind of clenched because we all knew exactly when the moment happened.
And
But on that video specifically, I was looking. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to look at. And so his reaction is a real reaction.
um, you mentioned you were looking around to people to your left and your right. Who did I know that Erica and her family got the opportunity to leave during the,
Yeah.
I guess, demonstration of certain exhibits. Were they able to leave during that, or were they still there because the judge was just? How did that work?
Yeah, so they briefed us on that when we were in a recess, that because but obviously Erica and Charlie's Charlie's family, they did not want to see that. And so we knew that they were going to let us know when that moment was going to happen. And so yes, Charlie, goodness. Erica and Charlie's family left, and so the only people left on the very front row was Jack Posobiec was on my left, and Don Jr. and his wife were on my right, and that's all that was left on the front row when Erica and Charlie's family left. And then Brandon Tatum and others were behind us on the next row. So yes, they did get an opportunity to leave, but it was kind of a known leave because they didn't want to see that,
Yeah.
nor should they have to.
And this is incredible because we have this of course, Erica stepping out, and she's mentioned it that she does not want to see footage of this. She's been very clear that she wants to stay away from this as long as she possibly can, but the evidence being so damning, and the only tactic that the defense has is really not to admit evidence by objecting to every single one by the state. What the state is attempting to admit. The evidence is truly overwhelming, but despite this, the judge reminds both parties, again, that this will be concluded tomorrow. And Don Jr., who has been a very close friend of Charlie Kirk, even Charlie Kirk saying on one of his podcasts that he recalls the days of him and Don Jr. going to Greenland and just being a really power group there, just them two conquering the world. A specific moment where they were doing that, where they were traveling together. This is campaigning for Donald Trump, I think back in 2016. But this is his take on what we're seeing as far as the evidence goes.
I'm listening to all the legal analysts who were in court as well, and they're suggesting the evidence is overwhelming. And how did the
it really is.
the prosecution's case sound to you in court?
Very strong, and the defense sounded very weak. The defense's only real tactic was seemingly to either stall or try to not admit essentially any evidence whatsoever, because, like, video, this is someone who lived 4.5 hours south who importantly, and most people didn't know this, was not a student at Utah Valley University. He came up 4.5 hours away, very distinctly. I guess it was a Dodge Challenger in a car with very distinct rims. So they're able to identify the vehicle. They see him coming in early. He interacts with some Turning Point people, apparently asking them, what was happening here? Who were the speakers? What was the timing? Whatever that may have been, it seems. He then leaves, but he's wearing shorts and a T-shirt. He comes back wearing long pants with a limp that magically somehow developed. Is seen on video going up to this rooftop, which was the perfect vantage point to make, this shot. Then jumps off the building carrying a long object that looked like the shape of a gun, according to one of the witnesses, wrapped up in something. And there was a screwdriver left, which to me, leads me to believe that he walked up there with a limp and had disassembled the gun, put both the stock and the barreled action, I guess, down his pants, walked up there, put the gun together. That takes 30 seconds, made his shot. They saw evidence of the indents of where, there would have been a sniper's hide, the indents from his knees and elbows where he would have lain prone to make this shot. The shot happens, and within seconds, he's seen the limp has disappeared, and he's seen, jumping off the building and running into the nearby woods. Then there's ring cam footage of him pulling up again in this very distinct car at 12:30 a.m., again, on a university campus that he does not go to, lives 4 hours away. To me, that seems like he's there to retrieve the weapon that was stashed earlier in the day. Other minor details like, he turned himself in and these kinds of things. But it's just been very tough to watch. I haven't, frankly, opined, and I've taken a lot of heat from people because I haven't opined on a lot of the stuff that's been out there because I didn't know that any of it had any basis in fact. But once this hard evidence was laid out to me in a courtroom before my very eyes, and seeing the reaction of the defense, this thing is much more cut and dry than I would have ever even imagined.
Now, one thing I did want to point out from the last clip of watching the reaction of the Judge Graff, where he witnesses the shooting of Charlie Kirk in the 4K footage, is that this most likely wouldn't have been the footage that Candace Owens had received from a Turning Point member, which is the video from behind Charlie. Would have most likely been the video from the front. Now, because of the SD cards that were secured, the other cameras that would have been recorded, some on the Steadicam, would have been the videos that have captured Charlie in the moments of his assassination, where he would have seen the high definition videos. And so, now that we've seen Lance Twiggs' video, how far does his limited immunity reach? He seems to say that they didn't talk much about politics. He said they didn't discuss identity politics amongst each other. I mean, what did they talk about other than playing games if they were supposedly lovers? Let's play this piece of tape that explains some of these exchanges. And again, these fall in the same category of the theories, the conspiracy theories, that the transcripts that we've seen from the FBI are fake. These are AI generated, but we're actually seeing photos of the phone itself during the hearing. That's some of the unredacted photos of Lance Twiggs' phone. You can see the messages, and they even make it clear. How do you know this is Lance and Tyler Robinson? Well, Lance said they were the tweets, not the tweets, but the text messages. And he even points out very obviously that this is iPhone messaging. The blue is going to be Tyler Robinson, or the gray is Tyler Robinson, and the blue is Lance Twiggs himself. Or I think the other way around. I'm not sure. Whatever photo, whoever's phone that is in the photo.
Well, Lance Twiggs seemed to suggest that Tyler Robinson did not appear overtly political in any of their discussions. He definitely, and we saw this in the text messages that were exchanged on Discord, saw Charlie Kirk as a purveyor of hate.
Yeah, that was an interesting moment during his testimony through that recorded statement where he said that he didn't hear him talk much about politics or even Charlie Kirk, whereas his text messages revealed that he was nearly obsessed with him. And even the etchings that he put on the bullets seemed to be that he was obsessing over this moment that he wanted to have in this assassination that was all targeted at this man, that he said that he just could no longer deal with his hate. So whatever conversations they may have had, how honest Lance Twiggs was being about all of that, I think it's very clear through the text messages, the Discord chats, the letter that he left behind, that he intended to kill Charlie Kirk.
Bullet casings, and apparently Tyler Robinson's reaction in court when that was brought up. The still images of Robinson on the campus and in the stairwell. And then when he asked Robinson in person, the day after the shooting and the day after they exchanged those messages, he got an in-person confession when Robinson said, yeah, it was me.
Now, what's interesting is we have this article by the Daily Mail. Now, what you take of it, I'll just leave that for you to decide. But this is an article that says that Tyler Robinson hearing is mistakenly shown confession letter alleged Charlie Kirk assassin left for his trans lover. Now you see what this letter was, what this letter appears to show here. If you are reading this per my text, then I am so sorry. I mean, terrible handwriting. I mean, I don't know. I left the house this morning on a mission and set on auto text. I am likely dead or facing a lengthy prison sentence. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I took it. I don't know if I will have succeeded, but I have had hoped to make it home to you. I wish we could have lived in, and then that's really all that was shown. Now, I know certain portions were redacted and were available for the gallery viewing, but here, let's read this article. This is Tyler Robinson's alleged confession note was accidentally shown in court, despite the judge's ruling it not be displayed in the public or for the public. The dramatic week-long evidence hearing has been underway for Robinson, 23, who faces the death penalty if he is convicted of murdering Charlie Kirk in front of thousands of people at Utah Valley University on September 10th, 2025. Prosecutors have said that Robinson left a confession note for his transgender lover and roommate, Lance Twiggs, under a keyboard in their home. And we knew about this letter. We didn't know exactly the full contents of this, but Judge Graff previously ruled that the court could not broadcast anything that the state calls a confession ahead of the jury selection because of prejudice, that it would taint the jury pool, that there is this evidence is too damning. And it goes back to what was mentioned prior with Don Jr. concerning the evidence that continued to be omitted, or rather, the evidence that continued to be by the defense. They tried to stop each admittance in order to prevent the evidence from being admitted. And you go to this point, well, this is the evidence that is damning. It's his confession. Time and time again, every piece of evidence that is entered into the record, or that the state wants to enter into the record, will prove more and more that Tyler Robinson is the man who conducted this operation. And so the defense has a very tough job in compelling the judge that there's not enough evidence for this during this preliminary hearing. And even today, there was a bit of a heated exchange saying that we're going beyond the point to where now we're sort of, I'm trying to get the words of what he said exactly, but we're going beyond the point of this preliminary hearing and the guidelines that he set in order to establish probable cause. That's the word, probable cause. And so we go forward with even the gunshot wound. So let's play this piece of tape. We're looking at some of the conspiracies. Who paved over UVU, the gunshot wound that Candace Owens doubled down, saying that how could Charlie Kirk have a neck of steel? Like, none of this makes sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. We want it to be I think people expect there to be some type of massive, conspiracy behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that it couldn't just be some twig figure, not Lance Twiggs, but Tyler Robinson. And so the theories begin to build.
Being millionaires.
I want to go back, if I can, to the scene itself, the preservation of the actual scene where Mr. Kirk passed. Did you all have canine dogs at any point that sniffed that area?
I don't know specifically that area, but I do know that canines were present, or a canine was present on the day.
But you don't know what task the canine was given?
My understanding was that it may have been used in an effort to track an individual that had jumped off the roof, but I don't know for certain.
And obviously that didn't produce any results, or we would have heard about that, right?
Yeah, not that I was made aware of.
Okay. Do you know when the tent and the stuff was actually removed from the scene?
I don't. I would imagine it had been at least a couple of days, if not longer than that, before anything was removed from the scene.
You didn't have to give permission to remove the tent?
Me, personally?
Right.
No.
So you're not sure when it was removed?
No.
And were you involved in the decision to pave over the dirt that was under the tent?
At UVU?
Uh-huh.
No.
Did you know that happened?
Only because it was in the news.
All right. But you don't know when or who ordered that?
Nope.
No, they really had nothing to go off of, to try to create this narrative that builds up the conspiracies online in order to just destroy what the state is trying to present as evidence. And so, again, going back to some of this imagery, we go to through some of these text messages, which some of this stuff will be redacted because of obviously some of the guidelines that they put forth here. But let's take a listen to some of the preliminary hearings.
Mr. Novak.
This is today.
We have no further objections beyond those that the court, of course, is very familiar with at this point in time.
All right. I'll note the standing objections made by defense. Those objections are overruled.
And we see, by the way, time and time again, that the judge is having to overrule on some of the defense's objections. And the state has really strong evidence to combat them on every single point.
Message, but I do want to have you read aloud.
So just to freeze frame here, remember when the whole conspiracy theory online of the transcript that we got of the text messages, the very few that we had access to based on what the news was reporting, is that this is all fake. This is AI generated. This is like, fake messages to, I don't know, make it seem like these messages makes Tyler Robinson seem like he's the fall guy here. However, now we have actual screenshots of the phone itself that prove otherwise, that these are legitimate texts that were sent. There's still something a little fishy here. Is Tyler Robinson's lover, Lance Twiggs, telling the truth during his testimony?
Certain portions of them. And I apologize to counsel. These are not actually given a page number. I have page numbers, but I'm happy to confer that we're on the same page as we go. So here we're looking at page 1 of State's Exhibit 16.1. If you could read a little more than halfway down where it begins Wednesday, 11 p.m., will you start reading underneath that?
Yes. So this would have been from Tyler. says, drop what you're doing, look under your keyboard.
And I apologize, let me stop you there. How do you know that that message would have been from Tyler Robinson?
That's just, so any of the messages in gray would be from Tyler, and messages in blue would be from Lance. It's just the way the iPhone distinguishes the messages. And also Lance in his interview also acknowledges that, who was saying what.
And up at the top, who do we see that this thread is between?
Tyler.
All right, sorry to interrupt you. So read that again, starting from look under the keyboard.
So after that, then Lance responds, he says, what? And then he says, you're joking, right? And then Tyler says, fuck, I tried to delete that.
If we could scroll down to page 2. And if you can continue reading along.
Okay. And Tyler says, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you.
Now, because again, Lance Twiggs is on the side of the state in order to present evidence against Tyler Robinson by these text messages, because Tyler Robinson turned himself in, his parents helped him, and people didn't believe that narrative either. But here, the text messages back and forth begin to really show this relationship that was probably more than what Lance Twiggs was putting out in his testimony, which he swore under oath. So how far, again, as we ask, how far does his limited immunity go?
And then Lance replies, you weren't the one who did it, right? And Tyler says, I am, I'm sorry. Lance says, I thought they caught the person. And then Tyler says, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude and interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from the drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering.
If we could scroll down to page 3. Continue reading.
By the way, that's me censoring. I'm probably just going to leave it be because there is some curse words between this. Anyway, despite that, I'm going to just let it. You're not going to hear the censor button anymore.
And Lance says, why? And Tyler says, why did I do it? And Lance says, yeah. Tyler says, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything in the news about them finding it. We'll update you shortly, or sorry, we'll update you by midnight. And then Lance says, all right, stay safe. How long have you been planning this?
Scroll down a little bit, please, Kimberly.
Now, if we go back a little bit, just to recap for a moment, the defense was attempting to object to some documentation, some evidence that the state wanted to present by Charlie Kirk's position, his religious position, his political position, and Tyler Robinson's religious, political, worldview. They wanted to try to omit that from the evidence pool, I guess you could say. And their argument was that this has nothing to do with, the mindset of Tyler Robinson. Like the state has to prove Tyler Robinson's mindset, but we know that this was a politically motivated attack. So for them to try and use this tactic in order to prevent evidence like this to be admitted into the record, well, they really tried their best, but they still failed because Judge Graff overruled their objections and still allowed these to be admitted into evidence. Now, not these pictures in particular, but some other documentation.
And Tyler replies, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it.
We can scroll down to page 4 and continue reading about halfway down. I'll stop you about halfway down.
It says while they were spot, but I don't want to chance it while they were parked there. If they'd found it, I imagine there would be more commotion. Again, I'm sorry for roping you into all of this. You shouldn't have to worry about this. And Lance replies, does anyone else know? Tyler says, not to my knowledge.
All right, I'll stop you there. Let's move to page 5. So this should be page 4. So just scroll down 1, please, Kimberly.
Now, let me take a moment here. You ask here, what is going on with Candace Owens? Well, we don't know. We don't know, right? Because she hasn't been online for the last 13 days ago was the last stream. And so since these preliminary hearings, which have been this whole week, we have heard really nothing from Candace Owens. Now, are we following with she started to go back and forth with Jack Posobiec on her X account. But what she has been doing on YouTube is she's been going live every single day, stuff regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination, new footage, a lot of videos that were, she was a daily show, daily podcast, really growing. She was the #1 podcast, especially her numbers on YouTube and how much money she's made from this narrative. The narrative that she was trying to build, constantly attacking Erica Kirk. And look, it's okay to question, right? But she has been silent, media silent. It's probably because her narrative is quickly falling apart. Now let's go back to that video here for a moment. But before I go back to some of the text messages, I do want to look at this video because the autopsy report that everybody was saying, well, this was an exploding mic. Now, the problem with that theory is that not only do we have the medical examiner's report that has been discussed here in court. Now, of course, during the actual hearings of this case, when it does go to trial, we believe it will because of the evidence being so damning that the medical examiner will be in the room testifying to what he has seen. The evidence will be even more solidified. So we're looking at, in a moment here, the autopsy, the gunshot wound to the neck of Charlie Kirk. And the narrative that was being played over and over and over was, this was an exploding mic. This was something else other than a bullet that was shot from a Mauser 30-06. Now we've seen the Mauser. We've seen how the Mauser could have been deconstructed, how Tyler Robinson would have done it. We've seen some of the footage of him going to the campus, of him returning to the campus, how he would have taken it apart, and the members from the ATF who were discussing some of this, the bullet shells, the casings, everything. They're going through all the evidence, line by line, moment by moment. And so even the narrative of Tyler Robinson even supposedly not even being present at the event. But when you look back at this narrative of the exploding mic, if you look at, we're going to play this video in a moment, so stay with me. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I want to get your guys' thoughts and comments. Please let me know your chats in the comments. Deadman, you say she was on the Sean Ryan's show. This was actually prior to the preliminary hearings. She's talking about the same narrative, 100%. And I agree the JFK situation was completely strange when you look at all the evidence that is presented there, right? We're still even... we're still confused as to the narrative as to how he was killed and what the CIA reported, all this stuff. But now we have this Charlie Kirk case. So when you look at videos of Hamas and their pagers exploding, there's a difference. Exploding dust, the explosions are even greater than what you've seen with the Charlie Kirk bullet shot to his neck. The damage would have been far greater than what you've seen on the online videos. So if you want to look it up, you can look it up, and I think you can find the videos easily on Google or YouTube of these exploding pagers. There's no similarity as to how he was shot in the neck. versus the exploding pagers.
Do you know whether Mr. Kirk was autopsied by the Utah Medical Examiner's Office?
Yes, an autopsy was conducted by the medical examiner's office.
Do you know when and by whom?
Yes, it was late into the evening of September 10th, or it may even have gone through into the morning of September 11th.
Okay. And do you know who
I'm going to
conducted
refresh
that
my
autopsy?
recollection because of the pronunciation, if you don't mind.
If it'll help you refresh your memory, that'd be great. Again, don't read it out loud. Look at it. Let me know when you've done that, and then we'll go from there.
Dr. Guajado, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Okay. You want to spell that last name?
Yes, Guajado.
Your Honor, if this is not personal knowledge, we object to the hearsay if someone told him all of this. I don't believe this individual was present at the autopsy, so we object to any testimony about the autopsy or what he was told.
Now, again, the defense is going to object to every single admittance of evidence. But you'll see time and time again, the judge will overrule these objections.
About it.
Mr. Sturgill.
Well, Judge, if I could, I'll just simply lay foundation for the report itself. And I think this is all information that's included on the report.
All right, so as it hasn't been moved into evidence just yet, I'm not making a ruling.
I appreciate
if you
that.
wish to lay more foundation, that's certainly your choice.
So you are aware that the medical examiner's office did conduct an autopsy?
I am, yes.
Okay. And did you receive a report from the medical examiner's office?
I did, yes.
Okay. Detailing the autopsy that was performed?
Yes. Prior to receiving the report, myself and Agent Davis visited with the doctor.
Okay. You visited personally with the doctor that conducted the autopsy?
That's correct.
Okay. And then subsequent to that, and did you discuss the autopsy with the doctor at that point in time when you were meeting with him personally?
Yes, Agent Davis and I had a fairly in-depth conversation, yes.
And where did that conversation take place?
At the medical examiner's office.
Okay. Do you recall the date and time that that personal visit took place?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was it within?
It was soon after, within a few days of the incident.
Of the autopsy?
Yes.
Okay. And subsequent to that visit, did you receive a report from that doctor that you visited with?
We did, yes.
Okay. And that's the Dr. Guajardo that you're struggling to pronounce his name. Is that fair
Yeah, I
to say?
apologize, but yes, that's who it is.
And the report that was sent to you, do you recall when you received that report?
I don't recall the specific date.
Okay. Have you reviewed that report?
Yes.
Again, you stated earlier that this is not the first murder investigation that you've worked.
Correct.
Okay. I take it this is not the first medical examiner's report you've received.
Correct.
Okay. Do the reports typically look the same?
Yes, they're in a standard format that the medical examiner uses.
Okay. And this report that you received?
Yes.
From who you believe was the doctor you spoke to?
Yes.
That conducted the medical exam. Was there anything peculiar about that particular report that stood out to you?
No, it appeared to be a standard form as used by the medical examiner when they send us reports.
Okay. On your monitor, Exhibit 11, I'm going to have displayed what's been marked State's Exhibit number 11, Judge, for identification.
Right.
And I believe there's 9 pages. So let me know when you see that on your screen.
It's on the screen.
Okay. What I'd like you to do is just look at this as it scrolls down through the 9 pages. And wait
Now
till we
remember
get to
that
the
the
very
judge
end.
is not
And if you
making
need
a
us to
ruling
pause or
on
stop
whether
or
this
slow
is
down, let us
evidence
know.
that can be
I want you to be able to look at
admitted
all 9
into the
pages.
record in order to move forward and use this for the trial. And so, Melissa, you say, I don't believe anything that has been said at this point. No one seems to be reliable and ethical. I think the best coverage that you can get of this, of course, is Turning Point themselves. Because they're going through detail by detail after the live streams have been conducted. They'll go through, they'll bring on guests, they'll talk about the legal side, they'll talk about ballistics, they'll talk about all these issues surrounding the case. And some of you might say, well, I wouldn't want to go to Turning Point USA because I believe that they had some type of hand in them in this situation, that they created a situation where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, that it was an inside job, that even it was they worked with foreign government in order to complete this assassination. However, the narrative is quickly falling apart because this is more and more as we dive deeper into the evidence that is being put forth. Of course, when the trial does happen, we're going to get firsthand testimony of the medical examiner, ATF, you name it. Okay, there's going to be a lot more thorough details that we'll be seeing when this does go to trial. Now, the judge continues to say, well, if this goes to trial, he has to say that in order to, just to be balanced, as he's mentioned before. But again, we go back to the evidence of the medical examiner report where she was, the woman on the defense was trying to object to this because, because this is not firsthand knowledge, as she said. It's not the medical examiner himself. However, this is necessary for the preliminary hearings in order to see if this is going to be set forth as evidence. And then later, they will have who they need in order to testify.
Do you recognize what that is?
Yes.
What is that?
That's the medical examiner's report of examination for Mr. Kirk.
Yeah, do you recall, you don't recall exactly when you received that?
I don't unfortunately remember the specific date when I received it.
Do you remember how you received it?
Then provided to us electronically.
Okay. Via email?
Sometimes via email, also on disk, compact disk.
Okay. And does there appear to be anything in the exhibit before you? Has that report changed at all? Or does it accurately depict what you received initially from the doctor?
It accurately depicts it.
Does the state...
Now, by the way, you see Turning Point, they're lying through their teeth. After all, they told us poor Charlie has a spine of steel, but this is the report that this agent is testifying to of what he saw. David Hall, officer with the Utah Department of Public Safety. So again, this is what he's looking at. This is what he's examining, or what he's testifying on. And of course, he's testifying under oath here. So there is a severe penalty if there is false statements being made here. And as we'll see, the judge will overrule on the objection from the defense concerning this information. They want to object to it because they don't want this, because it's too damning. The confession, everything is too damning. It all points to Tyler Robinson being guilty. So we'll cut back to some of the images here of the screenshots of the text messages between Lance and Tyler Robinson immediately after Tyler Robinson had done what he did. A couple of hours, whatever the timeline was, they go through it here on these text messages. I want to know some more of your thoughts. You say, I messaged a comment on bringing all info to the case, to the case. Candace is just as needed to help determine the outcome. Like it or not, but my message was blurred out. I'm not sure what happened to your comment, AK. Maybe there was something in there that was, I really don't know. You say, come on, host, every testimony by government official is a lie. No one ever goes to jail for perjury themselves. No, I'm not sure. I don't know if you mentioned you said the U.S. government told us the honest truth about the Gulf of Tonkin and other events, right? I'm specifically asking, let's see. We're not looking at the government. We're talking about specifically the Charlie Kirk case. We're seeing the evidence presented before us, what is publicly viewable. Now, more will be, as the evidence is admitted, of course, this will have to be public. And we're going to see more evidence for ourselves in order for the media and for the public to determine the outcome, or not even to determine the outcome, but to see the evidence for ourselves, to come to our own conclusions based on the evidence that is put forth, and how the state and the defense will combat whatever has been presented. And so let's go to these text messages for a moment here.
And if you could read starting sorry, Kimberly, scroll a bit more down. If you could read, I don't know, about a 1/3 of the way up that starts with guess.
Okay. Tyler says,
by the way, you say, how can someone testify about the veracity of a medical report that he didn't conduct? And how can he verify that it is the same report he saw 9 months ago without a copy he received at the time? So you have to remember, this took 10 months to get here. 10 months. All of this was being conducted behind the scenes. All the reports, all the research, all of the evidence that has been worked on. And this is not typical, because we've seen the defense that have been trying to push and delay these just the preliminary hearings alone. This has been a long point just to get to this moment here. And even after the fact, they continue to object to every piece of evidence, because again, it's so damning. We just saw the Daily Mail piece. Again, not very credible when it came to one of the ETF reports that they were talking about, because you looked further into the body of their message. It actually debunked some of the claims that they were mentioning. But they talk about this mistakenly shown confession letter. This is the letter that was under like a keyboard that Tyler Robinson said that he left in the case that he sent an automatic text, but in the case that he was dead or whatever. And so we go to these text messages here for a moment. Let's go back, because this exchange is very important to establish context as to what happened following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It took so long to get here. You say, come on, host, you are not that naive. The biggest lies and experiment was conducted on everyone not that long ago. Then we have to have more. First of all, if you don't believe that this was conducted by, I would like to know your position. First, do you think Tyler Robinson did this in the first place? Do you believe that, like Candace Owens, Tyler Robinson wasn't even on the campus when we clearly see more CCTV footage of him appearing in 2 sets of clothes, where Lance Twiggs even confirms that these images, he doesn't say this is 100%, but he says that I believe that is Tyler Robinson because of his clothes, because of his shoes, how he looks. He says the CCTV footage is a little bit blurry, but he still can say that this is most certainly, that he believes most certainly that this is Tyler Robinson. So all of this is interesting, but establishing more context here.
Guess I'm just sitting in my car watching reels for another hour, hoping this guy fucks off.
All that to say is you would have to present evidence like Candace Owens tried to do, but it's all falling apart because of the true narrative. There's the truth that will stand above the lies. And as you can see, she's been media silent since these hearings. YouTube media silent. She's not going live. Now, is she cooking something up? We don't know.
And continue.
And Lance says, are you okay still? And Tyler says, yes, check and spot again now. Will.
Sorry, now we're on page 6. Continue reading.
We'll update soon. He continues, the squad car was moved further away enough that I should be able to move in. I backed off because I thought I heard footsteps, maybe a foot patrol, but the crickets here are so fucking loud. Gonna see if the road closer to campus is open so I can drive past and check shit out. Probably still closed off though. Getting worried, hard to know for sure, but I'm not finding my rifle. Could be in the wrong spot. Lance says, do you think they found it? And Tyler says, dunno, they haven't published anything if they have. And then Lance says, why did you leave it behind?
Oh, sorry, Kimberly, if you could scroll down.
Originally. Also, does it have a serial number?
We could scroll to page 7. And I'll continue reading. I'll stop you on this page in a little bit.
Okay. So Tyler continues, IDEK if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with.
And stop there, please. And then if we could go to the next page, page 8. And if you could start at the top.
Okay, so Lance says, was your change of clothes there, or was that also gone? Or did you bring those with you originally? Anyway, you could replace the gun, or would he notice? Then Tyler says, only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. I'll bet that canine sniffed it out. Little snitching bastard. Replace it unlikely. I don't fully know what the gun was because it was old as shit, and Gramps did some modifying. There was a 4-digit serial on it. God only knows who it's registered to. Hopefully some dead guy who gave it to Grandpa.
Now, just to go back here, because again, today was a massive day because of the video footage that we would finally see of Lance Twiggs in interview with the state in order to testify against Tyler Robinson. Let's go back, because it seems like here you say, if you just take a close look about people being misidentified because a computer says the person on video is X. The problem with that is we have Lance Twiggs, his lover boyfriend, trans lover, however you want to put it, has testified that this has got to be Tyler Robinson, right? Not only that, have they identified Tyler Robinson as appearing, not only the same footage that they seen that was presented of him walking in the neighborhood with the same outfits, appearing on campus the day of and the day after. Somebody who lived 4 hours away, they identified a specific vehicle of his. Let's take a listen. And some of the stuff will be redacted, so we'll skip through some of the silent stuff. But here we go. Now, this was prior to the text messages that we seen.
Is to use your statement here instead of your testimony at a preliminary hearing. Understand that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in order to do that, I need to place you under oath and also give you an admonition about false statements, okay? First, you do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give in this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
What I find interesting, too, because their position, their worldview, they even have to swear on, essentially swear by God, right? So help me, God, that what I'm saying is true. This goes completely against their worldview, but even in court, they have to ultimately swear by God because, well, you can't swear to anything greater. And of course, this is what's so wonderful about our justice system, that we have in place in order to present evidence that everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Now, they're going to go back here because there is some technical difficulties, or we're going to skip forward because they have to do the same, sworn testimony here at the beginning. So and they had some audio difficulties, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit.
Full name with middle name, or just first and last? First and last is fine. Okay, my name is Lance Twiggs. And do you know Tyler Robinson? Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. And this is the same Tyler Robinson that's been charged with the shooting of Charlie Kirk? Yes. And would you say when you first met Tyler? I think it was 2023. I've known him longer than that, though. That was, I think, the first time I met him in person. Okay. And will you describe your relationship with Tyler when you first met him anyway?
So here's where they have technical difficulties. He asks him to spit out his gum, and then they fix some issues on that, and they'll do the sworn testimony again.
Where did you live at that time? St. George, in an apartment complex. And is that apartment the same place you lived when on September 10th? Yes. When you lived there with Tyler, were you in the same room? Did you live in the same room or different rooms?
No, separate rooms.
And at that time, let's say September of 2025, what were you doing with your life? Were you working, school?
I was working. I was doing like bathtub and shower repair and stuff in new construction.
Okay. How about Tyler?
I think he was both working. I think he was working for an electrician company then, and he was also in a trade school for being I don't know, higher like ranking electrician. I'm not sure how the trade system works for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he was both.
What was his typical work day like?
I think he'd leave around 7 generally and get back around 3 to 4, depending on like where the job was and how long it was for the day. And then on certain days of the week during school, like semesters, he would then later in the day, I think around 5 or 6, go to school. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's jump to September 10th. Did he spend the night in the apartment the night of September 9th into September 10th?
Into September 10th. Yeah, he did. Yes.
Do you know when he left the apartment on September 10th?
I don't know an exact time. I just know he left early. I heard him leaving, and he just said he had a long drive to work that day, so he was leaving early.
Okay, so early. Any guess as to what when that was?
I don't know. I would have thought it was 5 a.m. because that's when like an early work day was for him, but it was probably more like 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna have him spit out his gum just to make sure that
I can do that.
You mind? You're right in front of your laptop.
Oh, here you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so what time did you get up on September 10th?
Probably like 12 to 1 p.m.
You didn't have to work that day?
No.
And did you hear from Tyler? Did he call or text you before then?
No, he sent that message in the group chat I mentioned, but he didn't message me directly at all that day.
Okay. When did you first hear from him on September 10th?
It was at 11 o'clock with that like automated message.
Okay, 11 p.m.?
Yeah.
Now, this is the redacted portion of this, of course. And as we look at some of the what is being presented here with Lance Twiggs, it's very, it almost seems contradictory to how he would communicate with Tyler Robinson with these texts, what we see in some of the Discord chats. And even the weird evidence of the screwdriver having some of the Dremel screwdriver, the weapon having some of Lance Twiggs' DNA. Now, of course, because Tyler Robinson used some of Lance Twiggs' tools, this is what they believe as to why his DNA is there.
He asks you here, remember how I was engraving bullets? Was he engraving bullets before this?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when, but he had said he was planning to go hunting with his family. And he asked me for if we had a Dremel because he said he wanted to engrave messages on bullets. And I just told him where our Dremel was and told him to make sure he doesn't set off a bullet on accident in the house. But I didn't really think about it until then.
How long before September 10th was this that he asked about the Dremel?
I don't remember because he'd been talking about the hunting/camping trip for a couple months. But I don't remember when he was specifically asking to engrave the bullets. So
are we talking like a year before?
Oh no, not that long. It would have been I'd say at most a month before this was when he was asking.
Okay. Right. You talked about the note that he left. I want to bring this up, and I should say that these text messages that we've been looking at here are Bates number 54. Okay, the notes have been titled 16.3 with a note, and this is Bates number 58. Do you recognize that on the screen there?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you recognize it as?
That was the note under his keyboard that he was referring to in the first text of that chain.
Okay, so where did you find this?
On his desk underneath his computer keyboard.
And I assume you read it.
Yeah.
And then what did you do with it after you read it?
I believe I just put it back down on the desk after I took a picture of it.
Okay. And again, the time you read it was probably around 11 o'clock or so on the 10th.
Yes.
The night of September 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And did you ever see that again after you placed it back on his desk?
No, I don't think I did.
And that was a desk in his bedroom?
Yes.
And that's a separate bedroom than your bedroom?
Yeah.
And now I want to go to what's been titled 16.2. And do you recognize this series of messages here?
Yeah, that was the server, like his friend that I was mentioning.
Okay, and this is your phone again?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you recognize it because the big crack up at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a server. Is this Discord?
Yeah, this is Discord.
And who are members of this server? I don't want names, just generally. Who are these people?
This is his friend group.
Now, some of these the reasons for the redactions that they discussed in the court are because of names, other names that shouldn't be put out there publicly, addresses, and other information that would be, that is irrelevant to the case. And even with the defense that have constantly objected to some of the information that would be put out there is because, as we said before, some of this was too much damning evidence against Tyler Robinson in such a preliminary hearing. And so they're trying to determine probable cause rather than presenting evidence. And the judge constantly refrains away from continuing some of this discussion. Now, one question that we have following this, based on all of what we've seen so far, I mean, I appreciate you guys for sticking with me as we go through some of these videos. It can be a little bit laborious, but because you're getting a lot of this sort of, drawn out questions that continue to be asked in many different ways, the background, the history of how, where people work and what they do in their job in order to establish, grounds for why they are bringing this person in the first place in order to discuss these issues. But we're talking about the radicalization of people like Tyler Robinson, even Thomas Crooks. And this is a very interesting moment here during a congressional hearing that, is there a possible tie to the Charlie Kirk assassination, to the Butler, Pennsylvania attempt, where the radicalization from MK Ultra has this progressed further into the online sphere, and with algorithms, and this was, I just found fascinating. So let's take a look and tell me what you think.
What are the possibilities that what we've learned in MK Ultra, now that it has advanced so much to algorithms and the computer and getting to loners, that some of these loners could, through this just mass propagation of whatever you're doing, could cause someone to maybe take a shot at a president?
I know there's a lot of speculation out there about the Butler shooting, and I guess even the Charlie Kirk shooting. I just hate to speculate, because I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge whether those guys were programmed through radio waves or through their computer activity. So I would never hazard a guess, except to say what I've already said, that they developed means that we've never been told about many, many years ago, and I imagine they've evolved to be much more effective now. So
Let me
anything's
interrupt you one more
possible.
time, and I apologize again. But don't you think that they could cast this broad net through these algorithms and other things, and maybe they don't know the exact person it's going to affect, but they know what type of person it's going to affect, and they know it's going to happen, and that way they can't predict when it's going to happen, but they think it will happen, and then that way they can sort of wash their hands of this whole thing and say, well, we didn't have anything to do with it, but in effect they really did, because they put this out there and they continue to put it out there. To what other method you're talking about? Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Ma'am, if you want to jump in.
She's with NIH.
Okay. Doctor, go ahead.
It sounds to me like you're describing something like the Martin Luther King assassination. The FBI didn't carry it out, but it created such a climate just denouncing King as the most dangerous man in America and putting out all this material about how he was helping communists that they must have thought it's going to filter down. Somebody will take action, and then we can say we didn't have anything to do with it.
And James.
Now, what's true about what happened with Charlie Kirk, we've seen this rhetoric from people like Ilhan Omar, from people on the left that have, the media, that were parroting this narrative that Charlie Kirk was somebody who was racist. Charlie Kirk was a bigot. And they continue to lie and tell people that this is who Charlie Kirk really is. They would take clips out of context. And they would do this time and time again. And eventually it would catch somebody's attention and say, well, this is why he's so radicalized. This is, the things that he say is so radical. However, could this then attract somebody to take action? Even Charlie Kirk discussing on a podcast, which I'll try to find the clip here for you momentarily, because this is not something that I planned on queuing up here. So let me grab it for a moment, but I think you might find this fascinating, because when you see this clip, when you listen to this is something that Charlie himself understood was a possibility. Let's take a listen here. Let me just. All right, this is Charlie Kirk on his show. Let's take a listen.
Prayer that I'm wrong, that someone is going to get shot the same way that Steve Scalise got shot, and God forbid, killed. The left is creating a pressure cooker with so many of their rank and file paramilitary troops that very well might result in one of us getting shot or killed. God forbid that happens. We're getting death threats every single day here. Let's stay in prayer that I'm wrong, that someone is going to get shot the same way that Steve Scalise got shot.
He said it best. He was, because of what is being communicated online about the conservatives, about Charlie Kirk, we find ourselves in this moment of course, somebody's going to want to take action because they believe they're doing it for the greater good, for the cause of their political party, you name it. If you're just joining me, for those folks that have been sticking here through the stream, consider subscribing, give the show a like if you appreciate some of the stuff that we're discussing here. But we go to this, to the aftermath of everything that we've been discussing here. And I think the best way that you can get any type of information concerning this hearing, of course, is going back to Turning Point, Charlie Kirk Show. They're going to discuss this more further based on all the lies that have been made online about Charlie Kirk, about TPUSA, that they're now sort of being exonerated from these lies, that they've continued to, time and time again, say how false they were.
And thank you for making the time. You have been covering this trial. Really, you've been a source of information for me, too. You have a way of looking at things and insight because you've done this before. big picture, what do you make of this? And then I want to get in of day one, and then I want to get into what we can expect tomorrow morning and coming up next based on the exhibit list that has been made public.
Yeah, so far there's nothing that's happened that has struck me as particularly
Now, mind you, this is day one of the preliminary hearings.
surprising. Every jurisdiction has their own rules and their own ways of doing things, and so there can be a lot of variation in kind of the specifics of how things happen. But by and large, just in terms of what's being presented, how they're presenting it, the volume and nature of the objections that we're getting from the defense as well, these are all things that, to my view, as somebody who's handled these in similar kind of hearings before.
Now, I must address this question here. It says Charlie Kirk was an unabashed racist, and there's no honest way to deny that fact. Now, we've looked at these clips. If you've stuck with us for the last couple of months after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, we saw these clips circulate online of the black pilot comments. We've seen many other clips concerning people calling him a racist, whatever, right? They're taking him out of context. Even the clip saying, him questioning the Israeli government on what happened immediately after October the 7th. This was on the PBD podcast. We went through the context of everything that people were saying. Now, when we went through the context, we immediately debunked the narrative. You can simply go beyond the discussions of let me see if I can find this clip here, because you're seeing narratives even after or even during these hearings. Here, let me see here. Judge admitted damning confession evidence against a suspect. Okay, so here it says Robinson, man accused of killing. Sorry, I'm looking at this article that just was posted about 3 hours ago. Allegedly admitted to killing on multiple occasions, both in text messages and on an acquittance. Lee said that he witnessed State District Judge Tony Graff admit the highly compelling and damning evidence while sitting in the courtroom behind the victim's family. I was in the courtroom, this is a quote, today sitting next to Jack Posobiec, and I was just behind Eric Kirk when the evidence was admitted by Judge Graff. That evidence, the evidence admitted today, is absolutely compelling. It's damning, Lee said. It contains multiple confessions by the defendant, Tyler Robinson, acknowledging not only that he killed Charlie Kirk, but acknowledging that he did so having planned it in advance in great detail, and acknowledging at one point that he was motivated by hate. Now, as we discussed earlier, that the defense team wanted to, I wish I can go and find the actual clip. I'm not sure if I can find it, because I think this is a fascinating portion where they went through. It was about an hour long, maybe not that long, but they were going through back and forth to say, well, what is being presented here is going way far beyond these preliminary hearings, to where now we're getting into, confessions. They're looking for probable cause. Now, I'm not sure if you, yeah, of course. Let me see. Yeah, it's going to be really hard to find this clip, because you have to go through this is hours and hours of these live streams. And there's just so much to even go back. So I think this clip I wish I would have prepared this clip beforehand. However, you're witnessing a long drawn out, back and forth between the state and the defense concerning and this might have been, I want to say yesterday. So let me see if I can somehow find this while you're with me for the moment. And if you guys haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, email me your thoughts, freedomandequallyyokeshow.com. Let me know your comments down in the chat, because we've been looking at these at the situation of the Charlie Kirk preliminary hearings, and what we've been finding so far, what we've been listening to, is a complete, and total breakdown of Candace Owens' narrative. And for somebody that mentioned in the chat that how could people in the chat who have voted in this poll still believe Candace Owens' narrative, is, yes, to me, even still surprising as well, because we've seen her go media silent, and hence the title that we put for this live show. Where's Candace? Let's see if I can. This might be what we're looking at here. I'm not sure. Let's take a listen.
This court's eyes of what the state will call confessions at trial violates Mr. Robinson's due process rights right here and now today. And I know that we said that before in the litigation, but now we're exhibit specific. If I haven't been clear about the argument, I want to make sure I'm clear about it, because the court's decision to allow this video to be televised.
Oh, Blockbuster, 100%. Yes, they still think, they still believe that to be true.
And the other two exhibits to be shown to the camera in the back of the courtroom is exactly what the Supreme Court says violates the 14th Amendment.
So, and I appreciate that clarity, and perhaps, and again, if you want to go into closed hearing, we can do so, or if you want to refer to the pages. So I want to know exactly what you're referring to, whether it's in that 3255 through 3548, which is being excluded, or is it in the
It is not. It is earlier, and it's also the two other anticipated exhibits. So we may as well deal with all of it at the same time. It's probably easier to do it in a closed proceeding because nobody has to be obtuse. I don't have to be obtuse in order to protect my client's rights.
No, I appreciate that.
Demir missing in action. That's what MIA is. Anyway, so equally yoked first time listener. Do you lean left or right? Well, look, I have more conservative values than, I would say that I'm right leaning, or, I'm a Republican. Because you can see both sides. There is corruption with politicians. We have been in favor, of course, of what Trump has done in the U.S. and how he's conducted his policies based on his track record. And do we agree on every single thing? Well, we'd have to go through line by line to see exactly what we're talking about. If we're talking about the Iran issue that we've got going on, we've held to essentially what we've referred back to as Charlie Kirk's position, who has made it very clear that we don't want boots on the ground. However, that we trust Donald Trump because of his because how he's conducted himself in the Middle East amongst creating peace and establishing, at least attempting to establish peace again from his first term, the Abraham Accords, which he established then. And some of the other track record that he's shown, that he's proven to, that we can trust him by what he has done. And of course, people talk about the Epstein stuff. We've gone over this at length in this show. If you want to know more, you can follow along, because we go through both sides. We look at and we listen to both sides, and we see clearly on one side the complete I don't know, how would you say this? Because we've seen the left-wing media not even understand or know the Constitution when it talks about, when Mike Johnson, which we covered in the last broadcast, Mike Johnson mentioning God. And she was like so surprised by this statement that Mike Johnson made. So we looked at that. We looked at both sides. We looked at, this 250 event, what the left is saying, what the right is saying, how they're portraying America, how one is tearing down America, one is building up America, in the sense that they're building it up by their actions, by their words. So conservative, sort of politics. Of course, my overall worldview is indeed biblical. We hold to the biblical standard, that is to demand the welfare of the nation in which you live. And yes, we are to pray for our leaders that are in authority, from the top down to our local government. We are to get involved. We aren't to just sit idly.
It actually prompts, in order for me to get to that, I do want to ask the state, are you intending to introduce the text messages as an exhibit in this proceeding, the preliminary hearing?
Yes, Judge, we will be attempting to and moving for the admission of the text thread, the Discord thread, and
Giorgio, you say, I do not agree with you, but I appreciate your explanation and perspective. I think in order to understand more fully, you just have to be here in context when we discuss these matters, because this is more of a reactionary to what we've been seeing over this preliminary hearing. Now, I'm trying to summarize as much as I can with a year's worth of live streams of covering from the Iranian situation, from the Israeli situation, what has happened in Gaza, what has happened with the Middle East situation in total, of course, with affordability here at home, with gas prices, with California. There's much more in context than what I'm trying to condense for you to help you to, make a decision to follow along. This is one of the more thorough live streams that you'll see on the YouTube Shorts feed, rather than just reactionary content. I hate reactionary content. I want to stay away from that as much as possible. This is why I try to provide commentary with what we're looking at. Commentary with evidence, I guess you can say, video evidence, documentation. We like to go back and forth, especially with the chat, which this always helps. That if the chat is involved as much as it is today, then I can always see your perspective and try to go through as much as I can. We have views that are often opposite of what I believe concerning how the Bible ties into a lot of the stuff that we see. Stuff that I've been wanting to discuss as well, concerning some of the crazy health issues that America is going through. Not talking about Maha health. We're talking about like diseases that we're seeing, pestilence, imported goods that are causing this stuff, the internal attack from outside nations in order to weaken America. There's so much that I want to discuss but we have to shift our importance to this subject because of what Charlie Kirk has done, leading up to his assassination, even beyond that, what has spun out of his death. And all of this, there's heavy inspiration of what Charlie Kirk has done, not only in my life. Of course, I've talked about how I've met him before, and how some of his content has inspired the content here, and the point of view that we try to dissect some of the videos that we play here as to what his positions might be. Because a lot of people say, well, Charlie Kirk, how does Erica Kirk, know what Charlie would think, or, whatever. Because I think she said in an X post that we don't know Charlie Kirk's stance. Now, I think there's a context to what she's meaning when we talk about Charlie Kirk's stance on Iran. She's talking about today, because of what Charlie Kirk has said in the past regarding boots on the ground, regarding our operations with Iran, that they should be very limited. I'm just trying to give you, one piece of context here, that they should be limited by what Donald Trump does. And Charlie Kirk has even met with the Trump administration, met with Trump directly to discuss these. He said this on his podcast, which we covered that clip here. We go through stuff in context, because what we see a lot online is out of context. Charlie Kirk stuff more specifically, and even with politicians. So thanks again for the comments. You say, I absolutely do not give a damn about any of the political crap. I try to avoid it and enjoy life as much as possible, which I completely agree with, not getting so involved in this because it can frustrate you. But I think for the one who is not only for the one who is a Christian, but somebody who loves their country should be involved in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be beneficial for somebody who holds an America First mindset that you should be doing this on a day-to-day basis. You say, I can agree with that on a macro and micro level. I appreciate that. Let's see here. You say he should not have been doing what he was doing. Look where it got him. He absolutely changed nothing. If you truly think about it, what happened was he left a woman and a child behind. Now, he didn't leave a woman. This was not his choice. And even though they understood, as Charlie mentioned during a podcast, which what I think Turning Point USA posted not that long ago, is that Charlie was asked a question on his podcast that if he, I might be able to find this because I think this was played recently, that does he feel bad that Erica Kirk gets hate online? And he said no. And this was a couple that understood the consequences of following their call of God. That's how I'm going to put that, right? Following their consequences of, if they follow God, what this life entails, and following the call of God in their lives, as what Charlie was doing often in his in what he was communicating in many of his debates, in his podcasts, as to what he did, what he said, that he knew that what he said, that he had some serious influence concerning issues of the day. And so I'm trying to find this clip here. It might be on Turning Point USA's X account. I'm going to look for that in a moment because I don't think I'm going to find it here immediately. Yeah, it's probably on their X account, despite the fact. I'll see if I can find it. We're going to look back at what we were just listening to, this back and forth between the state. I'll look for that clip here, and we'll show you sort of his perspective rather than me trying to project what I think about the relationship. But he did not choose to leave his wife and his children behind. This was something that was an action taken against somebody who was radicalized into believing that Charlie Kirk was violent, when in fact he's the person that gave an opportunity for anybody to speak and to just have a dialogue, because he truly believed that when dialogue stops, as we put as a message here as a tribute to him, along the other sort of Easter eggs that we have here, as a tribute to Charlie Kirk, is that when dialogue stops, people begin to believe that the other side is violent. So that's why conversation needs to happen. This is why debate needs to happen. It's important. So let me play this, and then I'll try to look for the clip. If I can't, then I'll leave it at that.
I think, and the note that is referenced in Mr. Twiggs 1102.
All right, and let me take one step at a time, just for clarity. And again, Mr. Novak, I really do appreciate you being so precise. It's helping me parse it out so we can address it, because it's important, and I recognize that you're advocating for your client, and so I want to give it its due time. The text messages, from my understanding, and either side weigh in, my understanding that those were released to the public months ago in their entirety.
Judge, if I may, they were not released in their entirety. Portions of them were placed into the charging document, the information that supported, in part, the charges that the state has filed. We did not put the entirety of them in. And now we wish to publish more of them than were included in the charging document.
I see. For some reason, I thought it was as part of an exhibit for a motion, but Mr. Novak, I'm not sure if that's ringing any bells.
I'm aware of the issue that the court is commenting on. I think the state needs to account for its decision to publish text messages that directly implicate the Supreme Court law that we're talking about. And don't want to pretend that I can anticipate what the court's concerns are, but that doesn't cure republication on television of what the state will call a confession in this proceeding. So in other words, this is not like, oh, the cat's out of the bag or the barn door's open. This is another opportunity to violate Mr. Robinson's constitutional rights. And I'm not at all suggesting that somebody is intending to do that, certainly not the court, and I'm confident that the state's counsel would never intend to do that, but that would be the consequence of further televising what the state refers to as, previously referred to as confessions, and certainly would refer to here in this proceeding as confessions. We are so acknowledging that they are statements of a party. We have not filed anything in this case that publicizes the text messages, the Discord chat, the note which Ms. Hunt is mentioning, and now that Ms. Hunt has said that, yes, we want this note to be presented into evidence, and the court knows what this note is because the court's now watched the video. That's another piece of the same problem. So this is all simplified by the court being extra cautious about Mr. Robinson's constitutional rights, considering these exhibits to the extent the court deems that they're admissible and portions of them are relevant, and not further televising them in this proceeding in a manner which we think is inconsistent with what the Supreme Court said in Estes v. Texas.
All right. I appreciate that, Mr. Novak. Ms. Hunt, would you like to respond? Because I understand what Mr. Novak's saying, and there may be a 403 issue as well as it relates to this, and I'm not going to pretend to read your mind, but because I can't do that. All right, Ms. Hunt.
Just to clarify for the record in the court, the state's position is that we would like the audio played. The audio may be captured by the cameras in the state's position, but we never intended to visually put them on the monitors such that cameras can capture them and pause or get the actual exhibits, substances of the exhibits. I believe that was the media's position, if I remember correctly, is that they want everything audio and visually displayed, but the state's position is we just want the audio played.
Right, but what's it? So I'm just focused on 16 right now.
Okay, yes, and that's the state's position with regards to Exhibit 16.
All right, so help me understand, what's the difference if the audio's played or the video's played on what the court is identifying is, well, first of all, 16 is admitted, so that threshold has been met, but we're dealing with the publication in regards to what is publicized, because this is going to Mr. Novak's argument about publicizing that is different than the court simply reviewing it in its own privacy. I don't want to misstate your argument, but I believe that was one of the distinctions you made.
The distinction that Ms. Hunt is drawing is, I think, what people call a distinction without a difference. It doesn't matter whether it's audio or video, and it doesn't matter whether it's on a television or on the internet or on the radio. It's going to be broadcast. And so it doesn't really matter whether it's audio or video. And it's actually not Mr. Robinson's video, it's Mr. Twig's video. And when the court mentioned 403, yes, I think the court did accurately read my mind, which is fine with me, but it's unfair prejudice of a constitutional dimension, sure. And 403 is a rule of evidence.
Now, this going back to the video clip that we were just watching, let me show you some of the context as to what we were talking about earlier. This is Charlie Kirk here talking about the greatest country to ever exist, and this is why, right? This is because of the way we are able to debate and the way we are able to discuss these important issues here. Let's take a listen. And I also found the clip of him and the threats that come to his wife as well because of what he does, what he is, who he is.
America is the greatest country ever to exist. Not even close. What country would you say is the greatest?
What makes a country great?
Most productive, most accepting, most generous.
You say that the United States of America has always made the greatest decision, because nobody's perfect, right?
No, I never said America was a perfect country, ever.
Okay, yeah. Why do you go to that extreme?
Because from an objective analysis, correct, of world history, we are the most creative, the most accepting, the most benevolent, the most generous, most forward-thinking and productive country ever to exist. We are a country that sent 37,000 of our own citizens to die on the Korean Peninsula so South Korea could exist, and we asked for nothing in return. No country's ever done anything close to that. We sent a reading history. America is the greatest country.
Candace got fired from her own show. All right. So here's so that wasn't the debate clip. I thought that was the one where he talks about why they debate. But despite that, we have the clip that we were talking about of, why would he do this in the first place? Why would he put his family above, or why would he put, I don't know, how did you put it? No, I would not risk my life above my family as he did. They understood they had a call from God and they followed that call. Here's this clip.
Wife joins us, Erica Kirk,
Hi,
the beautiful,
everyone.
legendary Erica.
I love you so much.
I love you.
You're my best friend.
Well, by the way, you're going to get a little bit of an insight because of this video as to how Erica was prior to her husband being assassinated. For all the people that say, oh, her eyes look so weird and demonic and they look, I don't know, like she lost life. It's because she did.
Welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show.
Thanks, babe. I'm stoked.
So
Look how bright be back. It's been a while.
We have asked the audience for questions.
Yes, they came up with some great ones.
Well, there were some not so great ones too that Daisy had too. There were some X-rated ones too, weren't there, Daisy?
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, not good. Not radio appropriate.
Got
Not
it.
appropriate for anybody. It was I don't know. All right, so we are taking your questions and hopefully we'll be able to answer any thoughts that you have.
Great. Do you want to you choose the first one. I'll pepper in the next one.
All right.
There's a few of them.
Well, this one's easy. How long have you been married and when did you know it was time to get married?
Let me fast forward a bit
How did
here.
we know? We just
Not even close. That's a moderate. And yeah,
I was raised well, and I have some friends who are speaking like
to being
a nuisance,
a burden.
Your biblical role of your life, if you will. I know one of the questions deals with, do you want to, I was going to go off one of the questions that talked about the apps, but I looking to go on a date with a guy they found on an app. They have to hunt for a woman, but they do have to, you want to be so of you. I'm so
What
blessed.
traits?
It's so hard because
That have self-control.
All right, I'm gonna have to return back to this. I'm gonna go back to actually let's skip forward because this whole broadcast they go back to the to this clip because they're playing it. Oh, you know what? I don't know if they did. Oh yeah, here we go. This is it.
husband
I think.
will give up anything and everything for you in a healthy manner aside and focus on my biblical role that I'm so intentional with your faith and rival you.
I mean, she builds him up like crazy. You see through, you just listen to what she's saying here from the moments that I'm, in between where I'm skipping. She's building him up. Somebody who really loved her husband, not some narrative that Candace Owens is trying to portray. And along with the media online is, she didn't really love her husband. She really just wanted money, all this nonsense.
We're on the same team. Certain things that I feel as if someone, it's supposed to be freeing you. Beautiful.
Anyway, maybe I'm not going to find it because we're getting close to the end here.
Or repeating the things that were called or the names that were.
Oh, here we go.
Guilt or
Here we go. All right, here we go. This is it. Finally, we got it.
Erica, do you ever get hate from Charlie's work? How do you handle it? Charlie, do you ever feel guilt or do you ever deal with guilt when Erica gets hate? No, I don't.
Honestly, this is this is time I do get quote unquote hate. It's the same stuff you get. I don't even want to say, it's not even worth
She still
saying
gets hate.
it or repeating the things that were called or the names that were called. But yes, I do. I've lost family members, I've lost friends, but I actually am kind of grateful that that's happened because God has pruned my life in a way where I am surrounded in a circle now by people who love us, support us, pray with us, encourage us.
Small, mighty circle.
And that's what I would much rather have, a small, mighty circle than a massive one. It's the people that, that you can trust and pour into. And
now Erica has discussed these issues, even with Glenn Beck in the interview that he has with Erica Kirk, that they know about the security risks every time Charlie goes on campus. This is not new. This is not something they don't talk about. This is not the contingencies that they make, and this is why they had a plan after, in the case or in the event that this happened, because they knew that this would happen at some point. Somebody would make an attempt on his life because of his stance. He had very hard stances against ideology, other people's ideology, because he knew where to stand on. He stood on truth, and that was biblical truth, which supersedes everything. And he had a very nobody can compare to this sort of debate style of how Charlie was able to rapidly answer, no preparing for what people could ask. And if he did not know a question, he would say, well, I'm going to do the research on it. So you couldn't possibly prove that he was a racist, because you go down that line, you begin to fall apart with what you try to present as evidence and these clips that are completely taken out of context.
All right, so Ms. Hunt, as it relates to that publication, help me understand whether it's audio or video. What's the difference there? Help me understand that.
I disagree that it's a distinction without a difference. As we've discussed prior in this hearing, UCJA Rule 4-202.02 sub 2 sub J states that exhibits are presumed to be public court records, and it does give the court discretion to regulate access when necessary to protect the integrity of the exhibit or ensure a fair trial. So I do want to recognize that. But that discretion should be exercised narrowly, as we've talked about before with publication regarding this case. What the state is proposing, we believe, is a narrowly tailored accommodation. We don't want to display the full exhibits. Obviously, within State's Exhibit 16, the video of Lance Twiggs, he is shown, and it can be seen, exhibits that the state will then in the future move to admit 16.1, 16.2, the text threads, the Discord threads. So we're thinking that if it's displayed visually, what the cameras will be able to do is pause that, duplicate them, replicate them, essentially have access to those exhibits. What we're trying to do, and maybe they can do the same thing with I'm sure Mr. Novak will say they'll do the same thing with audio. But hearing the tone, the context, all of that, that's why the state chose to do, we could have done a written 1102 statement from Mr. Twiggs. We chose to do, as is allowed by 1102, we chose to do a recording because that's how the state is choosing to present this evidence. We believe that the appearance or the tone, the context, hearing Mr. Twiggs actually talk and talk through these exhibits, talk through his experience is a meaningful.
Now, I want to ask this question here. You say, I don't really watch Charlie Kirk. I just don't like our government lying to us. Now, I want to know what you mean by that exactly. And if you haven't already voted in the poll, we only have 186 people who voted. We have about roughly over 260 watching right now. Please consider voting in the poll, because I want to know where we stand concerning Candace Owens' narrative. If you're just joining in and you don't really know why I titled this "Where's Candace," it's because her YouTube channel, she's gone silent. And while I search for her, let's see what she's got on her X account. Okay, the last thing that she reposted here is boy, it's just Candace and her conspiracy theories. This is Candace on her X account saying, reposting, "This is your reminder that so far, real Candace Owens is the only person who has presented a clear photo you can tell is Tyler Robinson in any location on September 10th or 11th. As we saw in the hearings, this is Tyler Robinson at a restaurant getting Chick-fil-A, which was mentioned by an officer during the hearing. Her narrative continues to fall apart. Lance Twiggs even testified that he went to distract himself by doing certain things after the fact, and some of this stuff was redacted, some of the audio. Now, what did he do to redact? I think I remember one of the officers was talking about, I don't even want to say it. I don't even know if that's accurate, if that's what I recall correctly, because this was during the first day of the preliminary hearings. Now, she reposted this, which was posted 7 hours ago. I grow indefinitely tired. Let me see. I don't even know. Okay, so this is a whole long, gosh. I also believe that Erica Kirk has acted extraordinarily strange in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death. We saw the video of how bright Erica Kirk looked when speaking to Charlie, and all this stuff. It's just so false. Like you try to create a narrative. Here's her going back and forth with Andrew Colvett. She says, see, your big problem is that your entire thing is not about you, Candace. It's about Charlie. It's about Erica. It's about his kids and his legacy. But time and time again, you've hijacked Charlie's story by smearing and slandering his wife, his organization, and his friends, and countless other people. He puts in parentheses, now you're even crashing out with the I'm not suicidal nonsense. It's not about you, Candace. And yes, I have questions. I have also had them. I've always had them. I voiced them publicly before, but unlike you, I chose not to recklessly smear innocent people, organizations, companies. Now, he's of course talking about the fact that Candace Owens has repeatedly smeared Turning Point USA. This was a response to LMAO after months of promoting influencers who effectively dismissed everyone who brought up the obvious holes in the narrative as conspiracy theorists. Andrew Colvett is trying to rebrand himself as a rational and open to alternative perspectives. Sorry, Andrew, but this world has you and Blake pegged as liars and traitors to Charlie. There is no going back from it now, despite the full force of the corrupt federal government, celebrity influencers, unlimited funds, and mainstream news networks. You guys lost the PR war to common sense. And she goes on to reference the scripture talking about spend 30 pieces of silver and delete your accounts while you rest. Well, the rest of us keep fighting for Charlie. Okay, sure, Candace. This is her response. She says they police just took... Anyway, police just took a pic of Lance's phone, guys, biggest assassination since JFK, and they decided not to collect it and store it into evidence, just trusted him and took a couple of cute pics for Insta. And now Lance has immunity. And of course, the judge ruled that the defense did not need to examine these messages for authenticity at this stage of the hearing because it's all preliminary. Candace, the judge has repeatedly made it clear that we don't want to get into certain exhibits to start this as if this is an actual hearing, as if there is a jury, and that is what the judge has been very clear that we're not to go further than probable cause. And here's Candace Owens who continues to lie through her teeth and say just nonsense. And it's just not necessary at this stage. Got it. Enjoy your Fed slop. Okay. Because she clearly knows how courts operate. When I think we've all understood that this is taken so long just to get to this point is because the defense has constantly rebutted and constantly objected or constantly asked for extended period of time to find more video, all this documentation they need to prove the innocence of Tyler Robinson because this is a death penalty case. The state is seeking death penalty because that is what goes on in Utah. This is what she says about Lance Twiggs 11 hours ago. Lance, I think this would have been prior to the interview that we seen, Lance Twigg says he never heard Tyler talk about Charlie Kirk or okay. So this would have been regarding the well, let's read on. Lance Twigg says he never heard Tyler talk about Charlie Kirk or LGBTQ issues, but we're supposed to believe he jumped up one day and decided to try on and assassinate over those exact issues after never committing any crimes in his life. I cannot bear the Fed slop any longer. Oh, boy. But then you see the text messages that were posted, which, again, all preliminary, which more of this will be in greater detail when the hearing does take place, when all this is now public. Candace is trying to cover for her tracks because her narrative continues to fall apart. And it's just so crazy that we still have people who believe in Candace Owens. You say, to believe a 30-06 didn't have an exit wound at 150 yards, and when a 30-06 goes through moose bones and has an exit wound, we have an officer testifying to the medical examiner report. Now, when we get to that point, there will be an actual medical examiner in the room to talk about his report, to testify. And so, look, I get this distrust in government, in government agencies, in local governments. I 100% understand that. Charlie Kirk had these too. Now, whether you choose to believe the evidence that is being presented before you or you choose to deny them, that is your free will to do so. But we, yes, shouldn't just blindly trust government 100%. I agree with that. We shouldn't just trust everything. We can question the narrative. We can look through this, but we're seeing the evidence beforehand. And I've talked about this from the very beginning. When all the evidence begins to come out, people are still not going to believe it. This was said nearly immediately after Charlie Kirk's assassination, that people would not believe the narrative, that they would say that there was something else at play here, that some other entity, other than a singular twig-looking guy, Tyler Robinson. How could somebody of this nature, who doesn't have, as Candace says, a violent, a background of violence, has, a minor traffic ticket. He was stopped by the police once, and that's about it. He's a totally innocent guy. Look, even with the whole weirdness surrounding Thomas Crooks and with the fact that we had there was a social media trace when they said there wasn't. Mind you, this was under a different FBI, not under the current FBI under Donald Trump. All of this stuff that there's something going on, and the trust in government institutions has declined severely, of course. Since 2020, I think it has severely declined. And that is because of just bad, I don't know. People hate when I say bad. What about the Biden administration? What about the whataboutism? Nonsense. Yes. What about the Biden administration? More and more we see this distrust in government because they want to continue to expand government. This is what Mamdani is doing in New York. Anyway, we're going on a bit of a tangent here. I want to go back to this video and we'll just play this a little bit further.
Full way of presenting our evidence. And so that's the difference we're seeing.
I see.
Obviously, it's up to the court's discretion on how publication is to be made here. We've made our arguments generally.
Brian, you say, I heard the newest report, bullet didn't match the gun. Now, the ATF report of what the Daily Mail had posted was, which I don't even think they made a correction. Let me see. I'm going to try to see if they corrected it. Yeah, so, well, this is another article. This is Daily Mail accused of media maleficence. I think that's how you pronounce it, over botched bullet analysis. So it's describes here, Turning Point USA accused the Daily Mail of media maleficence. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm drawing a blank here. It says on Tuesday over misleading coverage of the court filing from attorneys on the man accused of assassinating its founder, conservative icon Charlie Kirk, says the legal team for Tyler Robinson, who faces multiple charges, including aggravated murder after he allegedly killed Kirk on September 10th, 2025, on Friday, asked the court for a minimum 6-month delay. So this is why we're getting this long delay, long drawn out, leading up to this these preliminary hearings, which will end tomorrow. It says, which is currently scheduled for May 18th, which then got delayed even further to July. Says Robinson's legal team said it was provided with an ATF summary report, which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at an autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied the suspect. It says a second comparative bullet analysis is not yet complete, so the defense wants time to evaluate the findings. Now it says some reporting on the filing misinterprets the results of the bullet analysis, as it does not rule out being from the Mauser rifle recovered near the crime scene, which prosecutors allege that Robinson's DNA on it and had been given to him by his father instead. The filing noted it was inconclusive in definitively tying the bullet to the rifle, but that it didn't stop news organizations from publishing headlines that made it appear that Robinson was essentially off the hook. The headline from the Daily Mail is an egregious example of media malfeasance. Geez, I don't even know that word. Let's look it up. All right, here we go.
Malfeasance.
Malfeasance. Okay, there we go. That's just Google for you. Malfeasance. Designed to profit from the online conspiracy industry that emerged after Charlie Kirk's assassination. It says an conclusive ATF bullet jacket analyst from a fragmented bullet is legally and definitionally worlds apart from does not match. So the bullet jacket, which was being discussed in today's hearing, I think this was, I don't know if, no, this it wasn't this one. We can actually go back to that. And let me go back to that, because I think it's important to this discussion of to what we're talking about. Here we go. She's talking about the bullet jacket here. And this is what the Daily Mail had reported back when they had posted this couple months back, maybe.
In either reports or testimony, unless required to do so by a judge. You're not making any such assertions in this case, are you?
I am not.
Okay. All right, thank you. You can take that down. Now, when you conducted your analysis in this case, and in all cases, do you typically generate a case file that includes proper documentation of your examination?
I do, yes.
And did you do that in this case?
I did.
Could you display to her alone, please?
By the way, thanks, DEW, Universal Malfeasance. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Exhibit 6, Carner 6. Case file. Yes. Do you see what's displayed there?
I do, yes.
It's a 47-page. Is this your case file?
It is, yes.
Did you rely on the documents and photographs that are documented here in writing the report that the state introduced into evidence here?
How so?
Before you wrote your report, did you photograph items that you were looking at, take other notes, and then use that work product to form the opinions you reached that are documented in the report.
And by the way, I wanted to address this comment right here from Bama. You say, I bet all the people that think Eric Kirk is acting totally normal are still in MAGA, which we've seen some of the clips of her actually walking out of the hearings because of the footage that would be shown in court. The audio, she does not want to see this. She's been very clear that she doesn't want to see or hear him being assassinated. And so we've seen videos, images of her walking into the court, walking out of the court in distress, having to relive this, and also being present as the I forget the term they use for her being in the place of Charlie Kirk, obviously because he's dead, but somebody help me out here. Anyway, you say, and think Trump is doing a great job. I left MAGA when Trump said we are still, are we still talking about Epstein? Bet all y'all like Ben, which I think you mean Ben Shapiro, maybe, I'm not sure. However, notice how the Epstein, all that died down. Nobody's talking about it. Democrats aren't really talking about it. We haven't seen any coverage from anything regarding the Epstein stuff. This is what we have. And even I think the DOJ saying the rest of the documents or the remaining documents or whatever has been put out there should be redacted because of the information that is sensitive to potential victims. Nobody's talking about it anymore. It's because they couldn't pin Donald Trump on anything, which they tried to do again back in 2023 and 2024. Just had to point that out for a moment.
The notes are mostly used for initial documentation and evaluation, and then, yes, supplement to the conclusions that I make. It's all a representative image of what my conclusions are going to be. So part of it is going into the conclusion statement and then just showing proof of those conclusions.
Right, and your standard operating procedure requires that you document in your case file the basis for your opinions, correct?
Yes.
I'd move Carner 6 into evidence.
To the state.
Is this the 47-page document?
Yes.
I object.
By the way,
I don't
they
see
even
the relevance to the court's probable cause determination to review.
Okay, so they're objecting here, but they even mentioned the distance. I think it was 400 feet. I think people had concluded it was less than that. And of course, there were people using the other metric system. I think it's not in. Is it imperial? I might be wrong. Meters. I think they were saying it was 100 meters, 200 meters. Nobody could really get an accurate idea as to how far the distance was, but they actually did measure. And I think she mentions the distance. I think it's her, if not somebody else. They talk about that this was about 400, a little over 400 feet as to where Tyler Robinson took his shot. Now, just looking back at all of this, and even people who have said on immediately after Charlie Kirk's assassination, they came to the chat and they were discussing, well, I can hit a shot from 200 yards, no problem, right? Like this is all, I don't know. This is easy to do. It's no big deal. 200 yards with a, whatever weapon they were talking about on the chat. And so the distance here of what they measured is, as I mentioned, over 400 feet. And whether, the medical examiner, I just don't understand how we're going to sort of try to get around the medical examiner report that we saw here on the, of some of what we showed here on this podcast today. But when we get to the hearings with the jury and everything, we're actually going to trial, we're going to see the actual medical examiner in the room himself or herself, whoever did the report. And we'll get the definitive, the final say. And Johnny, yes, I do read comments. I'm reading them right now. You say people forget that Tyler actually misses. He was aiming for his head and hit his neck. In order to, yes, hit his neck, he would have had to, at least to adjust for drop. But we know that Tyler Robinson was somebody who hunted with his family prior. I mean, they owned several weapons in their home. This was something that was clear. So this was something that he took a shot in a moment of, somebody was discussing this, right? You're looking through the barrel of this of Charlie Kirk in your sights. And you have to gauge, when Charlie's going to move, when he's going to, because he often set his mic down. That was one of Charlie's greatest things, to listen instead of just hold the mic and try to, rebuttal anybody who was debating him. Charlie often set his mic down. He did this out of respect for the other person. You get in the rhythm, right, of him picking up the mic, putting it down, picking up the mic, putting it down. Okay, you get the rhythm going, and then eventually you know when you can actually take the shot. Okay, and so if this is not a hard target to hit, being that there might have not been a lot of, weather factors that would contribute to the bullet missing in the first place, she talks about was that this was a semi-automatic, a bolt action. She goes through the details here. We'll play this clip in a moment. So, there is this moment where he had to position himself, line up the shot, and wait for Charlie to, pick up the mic, put it down wherever he was going for, and take the shot quickly. He said in his letter, I had an opportunity to kill Charlie Kirk. I took the opportunity. The confession is there, yet the defense did not want to admit it into the record. So let's play this.
46-page report that includes notes.
Would you like to respond, Mr. Burke?
Yes, Your Honor. This is the basis and documentation of the conclusions reached in the expert's brief report, which expresses her ultimate conclusion, but does not contain any of the reasoning for that conclusion. So it's important for the court, I think, to understand why and how she reached the conclusions that she did.
All right. Anything further?
No.
Yes, just that without testimony about what the meaning of the notes is and so forth, it is more confusing than it is probative. So under a 403 analysis, I don't think it's admissible nor helpful to the court.
All right. Mr. Burke.
By the way, you say, but he used his grandfather's rifle. Yes, a rifle that was modified, mind you, which is discussed in the text messages between him and Lance Twiggs.
I intend to focus on.
And that you also say the glass in the back of this SUV sure does look like glass from the mic that was clipped under his shirt. Well, mics don't have glass. These are mostly plastic. Maybe you meant plastic. However, the explosion theory quickly falls apart when you actually, try to connect the dots between the Israeli government and what they did with Hamas, which this is how everybody is taking this approach. If you actually just look at the footage from these explosions from these pagers, there's a lot more dust and debris that come out of these explosions of these pagers. I mean, the difference is you're seeing so much more damage than what you saw with Charlie Kirk's neck. And when a bullet enters the body, everybody knows that the bullet is very erratic. Whether it hits a bone, whether it hits certain areas of the body. Charlie Kirk was known to have to be in excellent health. His muscles, his bones, whatever caused that bullet to not just go straight through as people believe it would, because of the how people believe that the type of bullet. There's a lot of different factors as to why this didn't go all the way through. And yes, people have speculations. You say wrong, that mic does actually have glass. You can see a video of the exact mic getting broke. You're probably seeing the plastic from it. Depends on what mic you're looking at. If you're looking at a Sennheiser mic, which is typically used for recording, using as lavs on videos. These are the standard industry standard that is typically used. And there was a third party, which I would imagine they also utilized mics along with their production, but a third party company, it wasn't Turning Point USA, it was another company that actually recorded these events, which they would have been very well equipped to, mic Charlie up, whatever was going on here. And so there's this band that people are also discussing about, the band that was around his chest, which is actually a device or a band that holds the lav mic to make it more, to make it less visible on the outside piece of the clothing. He also had even the Rode mic that he typically used in some of the videos where you can clip it by a magnet, where he would either put here, which wouldn't have glass, but would be some type of plexi, either plastic. I have equipment that is similar to this, right? Could be a Rode mic. The small Rode mics that we have, that we know are available to most people who use these devices for media recording. So these don't contain glass, dude. They just don't. You're not going to use glass in these types of devices because, one, it would make it a lot more expensive for people to, for the consumer to purchase. And not only that, would it make it the reason for mics to be so in a way that they're incognito, that they're not sort of visible and intruding, is to make them as light as possible. This is what DJI has done. This is what Rode has done. In order to shrink the mics as small as possible while getting the best quality, you need to have these things as light as possible. Even then, you wouldn't see the actual exploding lav, right? Because the lav is about this tiny. It's a bunch of plastic components. Of course, other than maybe some of the metal that would be there for either the components inside for the microphone itself. And the rest of the lav itself, the actual device, would be clipped onto behind Charlie's back on the side of him, which wouldn't make any sense as to why this would explode in the first place. So if people are looking at a Rode mic that would be placed here on his chest, if people believe that's what it was, by the magnet that was there, for people to try to, people have created diagrams to say, this could happen by an exploding mic. People have done videos of, similar ways that an explosion would happen, where they've demonstrated this on video. Very hard to convince people that this was an exploding mic because of the lack of debris that you're seeing. There's no dust, there's no explosion debris, there's no other damage that appeared on Charlie other than the blood gushing out of his neck. Very horrific, terrifying thing to see online. Terrifying thing to just, it's just terrible. It's horrible. It's horrific. If you don't have a strong stomach, do not watch it. But, Charlie Kirk was somebody I hugely admired. You say glass is not used for sound equipment and has to be interchangeable. You say stupid conspiracy, dumb people like Candace. I have no concept. I have no concept of battlefield or gun wounds that have experience and that have experience. They don't even have a clue of evidence. Yeah, 100%, absolutely true. They try to present things as evidence, but then we see that it's all falling apart very quickly. And I'm addressing some of your guys' comments here. You say just Google it, it's simple, 100%. You say confession is his lover, Twiggs, and the, he did, it's all there. This is why the state is utilizing, but he has, again, limited immunity. So what Candace is portraying here is that he has somewhat like a full immunity here. Ridiculous. She just says here in her tweet, the police just took a pic of Lance's phone, guy's biggest assassination since JFK, and they decided not to collect it and store it into evidence. Just trust him, and took a couple of cute pics for Insta, and now Lance has immunity. It's limited immunity. She's going to get away with this because she continues to create a narrative that is false. And if you haven't already, please vote in the poll. I want to know your guys' thoughts as to where you are. As to where your position is on Candace Owens. I mean, where is she? The only thing she's doing is tweeting. Why not live streaming? Where's she at? I'm just looking at some of Candace's tweets. It's talking about the Lance Twiggs video. It's just the gall that she has. Actually, here we go. I meant to play the clip, not remove it.
Particular photographs which document what she received in evidence and the comparisons that she did, which are also documented in this file in the way of comparison photographs.
All right. As it relates to the objection is overruled. I find that this is relevant as it relates to State's Exhibit 30, which was admitted, as well as State's Exhibit 32, which is admitted, and the state is able to do cross-examination on this witness as it relates to this report. And so it is admitted and may be published on all levels in the courtroom and through the media.
Thank you. Ms. Carter, one of the items you were asked to look at was, as described in your report, one bullet jacket fragment.
And by the way, this is so ridiculous. Let me. Sorry if that was loud. Let me go to this video that Candace posted 12 hours ago. This just shows you it's a detailed cartoon as to what her mind believes actually happened, and I think somebody portrayed it online, and they did very well. And she then reposted this, or rather posted this for herself, just to, I don't know, believe her own theory here. This is her evidence. This is like if she were to present her evidence to the court, this is what she would present. This is what I believe it would be.
While conspiracy theorists insist no 30-06 could possibly behave this way, the round blasted into Charlie Kirk's neck, crushed his vertebra, and ricocheted downward toward his heart, only to be stopped dead by his legendary Superman neck of super-dense steel-like bone. It created no exit wound and lodged harmlessly just beneath the skin, which experts hailed as a miracle that saved the bystanders standing behind him. Up on the rooftop, Tyler Robinson didn't just break down his rifle. He shredded it apart in a ridiculous hyperspeed blur using nothing but his bare hands. Then he sprinted across the roof and launched himself off the edge with expert parkour precision. Tyler made the conscious expert decision to reassemble his rifle one last time and place it under a tree in a bush. He then changed back into his blue jeans and maroon t-shirt in hyperspeed. Time for ice cream. While
Now, obviously, she's poking at some of the evidence that has been presented because of these hearings, and she still chooses to believe in some type of, well, this is what we believe the narrative, to be, that the government is lying to you, and this is, it's just so stupid. This is not what we believe happened, Candace. We see that some of the bullet fragments that have been shown by, I think actually in this, yeah, we're going to see the fragments. It's just crazy. Okay, let's look at this. Let's continue on in this hearing here a little bit longer.
And 4 lead fragments, correct?
Yes.
Were you informed at some point that there was a discrepancy between what you were examining and what had been documented by the medical examiner in terms of the number of bullet fragments?
I was, yes.
Were you asked to see if maybe the ATF had lost certain portions of the evidence?
No, I was not.
Right. Do you think, and was it your understanding that there were originally 7 bullet fragments, but you ended up with 4?
I was alerted that there was potentially 7 fragments from the medical examiner in a photo just a few months ago.
Okay. You're clear, though, that when you got the evidence, it was in a sealed condition, correct?
It was, yes.
And when you opened, what was it, an envelope?
A small individual manila envelope, yes.
And did you take the contents of the envelope containing the bullet and take photographs of it?
I did, yes.
Okay. Could you display page 41 of 47 of that exhibit?
This is the Tyler Robinson's defense speaking here,
I'm sorry, page 14.
if I'm not mistaken.
And tell us what's depicted here.
Yes, this is a picture of the as-received condition of Exhibit 6 in its entirety. That's the top picture.
And mind you, this is the same, what we talk about the Daily Mail, who has been, accused of the malfeasance articles that they've been putting out there saying, well, there's no sort of conclusive evidence because of the, there's no match to the bullet shell casings. Well, of course, look at it. How are you going to tell? Okay, but she goes on to describe that she even tested the weapon. They have to shoot it within a water chamber. They go through all these series of tests, whether this is, this type of a bolt action is semi-automatic, whatever. She goes through the whole thing.
So you'll see Exhibit 6A all the way through 6E in descending order. And then the bottom 2 photos on the left is the Exhibit 6A bullet jacket fragment, and that is the view of the exterior. And then the photograph on the right is the Exhibit 6A bullet jacket fragment, and that's the view of the interior of it.
Okay. Now, after you documented what the bullet and the fragments look like, did you do certain procedures on the bullet, the larger bullet fragment?
I did, yes.
And what did you do?
I cleaned the bullet jacket fragment, and I also peeled the petals back. If you think of a banana and peeling the skin away from the interior, it's almost like doing that. As you can see from the photo, the petals have been crumpled in on themselves. So in order for me to see the land and groove impressions, which holds those individual characteristics needed for a comparison, I have to do some maneuvering of those petals.
And how do you do that? Do you use an instrument to peel back the portions that you want to look at?
I use pliers.
Okay. And after you did that procedure, did you then photograph the larger bullet fragment itself?
I did, yes.
Were the smaller fragments essentially not of any value to you in terms of doing comparisons?
By the way, somebody says, this is 13 Kelly. You say bullets are unpredictable after they leave the muzzle. It hit his spine just at the right angle and to end up like you see here. You're 100% correct here. Everybody knows this is not, hard science, like, science that you can't understand. This is something that you don't have to be in, somebody who specializes in bullet trajectory, ATF, any of this stuff. You don't have to have that type of expertise. You simply know that bullets are erratical when they enter into a host, whoever. They don't just go straight through, not always, unless you have that powerful of a weapon and bullet, which even then, depending on the type of weapon and bullet, bullets can cause sort of mini explosions. They can rip apart limbs. It depends on what you have. Everything is a factor. It's not just a simple, well, this is like, Call of Duty. You shoot the person, there's an exit wound. You shoot them in the head, well, there's an exit wound there, whatever. People have survived by bullets literally being lodged in their head with no exit wound. I mean, it just depends on a lot of different factors. I just don't understand how hard it is for people like Candace Owens to just simply accept this as the truth.
They were deemed unsuitable, which means there are no microscopic marks of value for comparison.
Okay, but the larger fragment, after you did the process you just explained, you then photographed it again, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Could you display the next page of this exhibit, please? Tell us what we see here.
This is 2 pictures of that 6A bullet jacket fragment after the examination preparation. So the top photo is going to be the interior of 6A, and then the bottom photo is the exterior of 6A.
Now, after you took these photographs, did you proceed to do something to determine whether you had either class, individual, or subclass characteristics?
Yes.
Tell the court what that means.
To start, when I do my initial examination of a bullet jacket fragment like this, I'm going to look at its class characteristics. Class characteristics are the least restrictive set of characteristics I use in my comparison process. And these are design features that are given to a large group of items that characterize them together. So for a bullet, you could think of the diameter of the bullet, the number of landing grooves, the direction of twist, and the type of rifling. So I would go through and look at the class characteristics of this bullet jacket fragment, which was 6 right conventional rifling. Then I'd move on to look at any subclass characteristics. And subclass characteristics are more restricted than class, but less than individual. And they are design features that can be put on an object during the manufacturing process, which is consistent among items that are made by a tool that's in a specific state of wear. So what I mean by that is it's going to be a subset of a larger group, which is why it's not used for for identification or comparison purposes for the basis of a conclusion.
Now, by the way, as somebody says here, there is something off with Charlie's security. I think that they're trying to make it look like Israel did something, but I think it's the business partner that is actually responsible. Who are we talking about here, the business partner? The security team, which I wonder if they're going to be, we haven't seen anything or heard anything of the security team of Charlie Kirk or anybody else, probably irrelevant to the preliminary hearings. I really don't know. Just based on their findings, based on the evidence that they're presenting, they don't need to bring in the security team. They don't need to bring in anybody else, because we see clearly that Tyler Robinson has shown that he essentially confessed in these. It is a confession. Multiple confessions that we see, texts on the letter. It's undeniable. You say Madman's. Candace has parlayed the assassination of her friend into clickbait viewership. Oh, I couldn't agree more. You say, I cannot wait for Erica Kirk and TPUSA and Kash Patel to sue the effing crap out of her, which they might. I thought there was, I don't know, this could have been just a friend telling me that Erica Kirk was pursuing Candace on defamation, but I could be absolutely wrong. I don't know if he was accurate in that. Maybe there was just speculation, but I think this, if anything, this would be more beneficial as Erica Kirk is sort of going through this stuff, that it's sort of exonerating her already, but people are still gonna, as we looked at the clip earlier, she's somebody who got hate because she was simply Charlie Kirk's wife. And that's really it. She's going to continue to get hate. And somebody like Candace Owens, who's supposedly a believer in Jesus, she is doing the opposite of what the scriptures say concerning widows. And this is, I think, in Ezekiel 30. Exodus. I think I said that wrong. Exodus, not Ezekiel. Exodus 30, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, despite the fact, how widows are to be treated, and it's not like how Candace is treating Erica Kirk, which she says that she was so close to Charlie, and even the video that she posted immediately after Charlie Kirk's assassination, like, it's just weird, showing them being so close. Like, I don't know why you would post something like that as if you guys were like a couple. It's very strange. I know they were very close friends by how Charlie Kirk spoke of her when he was alive. But there was a lot of just a very nasty road that Candace went down, and very bad. Even Andrew from the producer of the Charlie Kirk show said that she's probably mad that she didn't get to take over Turning Point USA as the face of the Charlie Kirk show, or whatever the comment was.
But when you think of something that's made through a mold process, when that mold comes together, it creates a seam line, and that seam line is going to be represented on all the items that it makes. So that's why you can't use it for the identification process, because it's going to be on a lot of items, which is why it's a subset of the group. Then I move on at looking at...
But AK, you say, well, not exactly. She's human, and she has a right in America to do so. The belief of a biblical posture, it's not relevant. It's completely relevant. Because if me as a Christian and her as a quote unquote Christian, I don't believe that she's a true believer in Christ, because she doesn't practice what the scriptures say. And if we are to practice what the scriptures are to say, we are also to criticize or critique or even make sure that we hold ourselves as Christians accountable with one another. The scriptures are very clear as to bringing witnesses to another believer if indeed there's some issues going on within the body of Christ. And that is what is happening. Charlie Kirk was a believer. And the way she is conducting herself with another believer, which is Erica Kirk, is way out of pocket. It goes completely against scripture. So we are to then call her out on this. Believers are to do this amongst themselves rather than going to a court or to, settle this within the judges. You're to do this amongst each other. You're to bring a witness, and if they don't want to do that, then you expose them before the whole congregation. These are rules very clearly laid out in scripture concerning this, especially what God says on how you are to treat the widow, how you are to treat situations like this. Candace is not doing her part if she is this perfect Christian. And it's just crazy. The road that she went down is completely radical. She's been radicalized by her own, I don't know, the fact that she's getting all this clout. I don't know. Maybe she's getting high off of this. Maybe she feels so, I don't know. She's on her high horse, and it's clearly getting to her.
The individual characteristics. And these are imperfections and irregularities that arise from the manufacturing process. And then there's also individual characteristics can arise from wear, use, and abuse of a tool. And these individual characteristics is what is going to be distinct to that tool, and that's why they're used for the identification process. So again, I did an examination of its class characteristics, looked for any subclass characteristics, and then looked to see if there was individual characteristics in the land and groove impressions sufficient enough of marks and values to do a comparison process.
Now, once you have the class characteristics of a bullet, can you narrow the range of firearms that could have fired it just based on class characteristics?
You can, yes.
And is caliber a class characteristic or an individual or a subclass characteristic?
Now, to quote the scriptures more directly about the widow, it says, "You shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child." This is Charlie Kirk's family here, Erica Kirk and his children. If you mistreat them and then cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath will burn, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall become widows, and your children fatherless. There's very strong, and this is Exodus 22:20, actually. Very clear as to what God believes, or rather not what God believes, but what God establishes as to how you're to treat the widow and the fatherless child if you mistreat them. And they cry out, and they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry. You can't get any more clear than that.
Characteristic.
It's going to be a class characteristic because a lot of firearms
And by the way,
have the same class.
I know I keep pausing the video, but I'm addressing some of the comments here. You say wanting answers is not mistreating anybody. That's false, because that is not what Candace Owens is doing. She's accusing not only Erica Kirk, she's accusing Turning Point USA. She's accusing specific staff at Turning Point USA. She is benefiting off of this in every way possible, monetarily, clout, and it's just bad. 100%.
Or excuse me, the same caliber.
Did you measure the diameter of the bullet?
I did, yes.
And did you end up with a range where it could have been a certain range of length or diameter?
I did, yes.
And what was your reading?
Can I refer to my notes,
Yes,
please?
please.
The range of the diameter for the 6A bullet jacket fragment was .286 to .301 inches.
Okay, what page are you looking?
And by the way, Lee Riley, you say one description of a widow in the New Testament says she stays at home, which, look, if you're going to bring scripture into this, I would suggest that you quote the verse 100% so that we can go through the context. But if you are going to look at the whole counsel of God, the whole context of the scripture, women are permitted to teach other women in churches. Women are permitted to teach children. And even the position that Charlie Kirk held, which everybody likes to throw out there and say, well, Charlie Kirk believed that, women shouldn't be CEOs or whatever, however you want to frame it. The problem with that statement of trying to utilize Charlie's argument concerning women, he says that, if this is what you want to do, you want to chase that by all means. Some women have the drive for that. There's nothing wrong with that. However, society is more stronger when you have women at home, women who are there nursing their children. Now, I'm not talking about, breastfeeding. I'm talking about nurturing is the word I'm actually looking for. Nurturing their children, not nursing. Nurturing their children, which, there's benefits to nursing and all that stuff, despite that. Nurturing their children at home and building them up to be, as he would hold the positions to the scripture as to what they are to adhere to as far as the law and the direction of the father and the mother. You can read these in the Proverbs or in the Psalms concerning children, that you're going to establish a home that is God-centered, that is God-focused. And so looking at his position as to women being CEOs, which he has criticized many of these women because of how they end up in the very end of it all, on what typically they put their efforts into certain causes, such as the destruction of or the murder of babies in the womb, these causes that they often involve themselves in. You can go down the list, Black Lives Matter, whatever. And a lot of these women are CEOs that are holding this position because they have nothing else to sort of, I forget the way in which he positions it, but you can look at many of his debates where there's this set of women who are these boss babes, CEOs, who have sort of no purpose other than just their job, which they become often depressed because of this. And there's data to support this. And he brings out the data concerning these issues. Now, for the women who stays home, who takes care of her children, who, does what she needs to do to be a household woman, whatever. Despite all that, Erica Kirk was forced into this situation where she's forced to be somebody who is now CEO of this company. Whether she chooses to hand that off to somebody else, we don't know. But we know that her motive right now is to not let the legacy of her husband die. She has said this from the very beginning, immediately after Charlie Kirk's death. People that are criticizing her and how she's mourning, how she should be mourning, how she shouldn't be mourning, is all ridiculous. Because everybody mourns differently when they lose a family member, when they lose somebody close to them. I've heard many testimonies, many stories of believers when they lose their husband, when they lose their wife, which is probably one of the most tragic things anybody can go through, apart from, losing their children or outliving their children. I think that's more of a horrible way to put it, is to outlive your children. It should be the other way around. You are the one to outlive your children. Your children are to outlive the parent. The reality of these combative statements against Charlie Kirk is that Erica Kirk was forced into this situation. She didn't choose to be a CEO. She didn't choose. Even then, she was a CEO before. She had companies. She had established a name for herself. She established a brand. And even then, she was a CEO of a company, Bible and 365, all the while being a mother at home. She still had it on lockdown, but people don't know this. They just don't care to look into any of this stuff.
It's page 13.
Okay. Now, so this is your documentation of the diameter measurement. And then on the right there, LIMP, that's measurement of the land width, correct?
The land impression width, yes.
MS Scribe, you say, what does equally yoked mean? Let me answer that question before I play this video, because I think it's important to what this show is all about in the first place. Equally yoked is, when we look at the scripture and what it described as being equally yoked, is being equally yoked with a believer. We don't want to be unequally yoked, first of all. And this can be in the context of a relationship, as Paul lays out in the New Testament. But if you're looking at what Jesus talks about with the yoke that we put on, that is a yoke that is created by Jesus himself, that he says, put on my yoke, my burden is light, it is easy, as he describes in the New Testament. And let me pull that scripture up for you, just for context. My burden is light, my yoke is easy. This is the verse, or the scripture that the saying that he uses concerning following Christ. So ultimately, we want to be equally yoked with Christ. That is the ultimate goal. And what this channel serves to be is, it has political commentary, but how are we going to apply the Bible into our politics? We can go through the details of all this, which we have at this on the show before. And I'm grateful if you're here for the first time. Please consider subscribing, liking the show. But yes, equally yoked is being equally yoked in Christ, walking alongside Christ. He is the other part of the yoke. That's what it's intended to be for, and hence the yoke logo.
And these are all general characteristics, or class characteristics, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, once you had that and also that it was, you said, what's called the rifling was to the right, correct?
The direction of twist, yes.
Yeah, the lingo is 6 to the right, meaning
6 right, yes.
Yeah. And that's a class characteristic.
Correct.
So once you had the diameter of the base of the bullet, and did you have some difficulty because of the damage to the bullet in exactly measuring it?
The reason I provided a range was because of the damage and deformity to the base. So at times it wasn't a perfect circle, so it was important to me to give a range of what those diameter measurements were.
Once you have the diameter and the rifling characteristics and the land and groove measurements, can you then plug those measurements into a database and to narrow down the class of weapons from which this bullet could have been fired?
The general rifling characteristics search will use those class characteristics and will generate a list of possible firearms that could have fired the bullet. But that list is not all inclusive, it is just used as an investigative tool.
Sure. Could you go to page 47, please?
And to go to the scripture, because I was looking for it, it says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So we don't want to be unequally yoked. We want to be equally yoked in Christ. That is the goal and the purpose of this channel. All the while, yes, looking at politics through a biblical lens view, looking at scripture and how we are to look at prophecy. By the way, yeah, you say you confused it with yolk, not egg yolk. Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for the clarification. But yeah, that's the verse. To be more specific, that is Matthew 12 or 11, chapter 11, verse 28. You can start in 27, technically, to 30.
Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
This is the results of that general rifling characteristic, or the GRC search.
All right, and what did you determine in terms of, just based on the class characteristics, what weapons could have fired the 6A bullet?
There were several different 30 caliber class firearms that could have fired the bullet.
And they're listed here, correct?
Correct.
Could you tell us what the initials PI and RI and PR mean in the far right-hand column?
They refer to different types of firearms, so rifles, revolvers, machine guns, any type of firearm.
And what are the pistol ones? How is that designated? PI or?
Correct.
And what is RB?
Bolt action.
Bolt action. So based on the class characteristics, any of these weapons could have fired that bullet.
And so people are clipping this moment and saying, damning evidence against the report here that sort of exonerates Tyler Robinson. Now, this is the defense team presenting this. But when you go through the evidence that the state is about to present afterward, you begin to see, well, that's not the entire context. There's always context to something. So don't believe everything you're seeing online because you're seeing people clip where Tyler Robinson allegedly, met with, because of the security camera footage that they were going through, that Tyler Robinson met with somebody, a Turning Point USA staff member. People are spinning that. They're just clipping at that and they're spinning that and saying, see, Turning Point USA had, this is an inside job. They had something to do with this. That is not the truth. When you look at everything in context, you see exactly how this would have played out. And plus, first of all, we could be talking about him making contact with the TPUSA member to get inside the event, to figure out details about the event, to figure out when things start, to just get his mind wrapped around everything prior to him actually arriving and taking the shot. There's a lot of details that are missed in between. How do we miss these details? Well, you just got to listen in, because it's you're going to find yourself in a very deep pit if you try to go down these conspiracy theories of the Candace Owens type, and your narrative is going to fall apart really fast if you just listen to the evidence that is being presented, and you make of it what you will.
Have possibly fired the bullet jacket fragment, yes.
Okay. Now, let's go back to the examination of the other two measures, subclass characteristics and individual characteristics, is one of the reasons you look at subclass characteristics because they can be confused with individual characteristics.
That is a concern, yes.
In fact, your manual says that, right? It's important to rule in or out subclass characteristics to avoid the danger of confusing them with individual characteristics.
I'm not sure if our manual says it verbatim. It says that we do need to assess every piece of evidence for possible subclass characteristics.
And what is the reason for that?
Subclass characteristics can be similar to individual characteristics. However, trained examiners are able to notice the difference between subclass and individual. Subclass characteristics are not always present on an item. It's possible, but not always present. And they tend to look a certain way. They're going to be uniform in their appearance. They're going to be spaced in a way that's more uniform. If you think of circles, those circles could be a distance between each other in the same distance every time, and they will look almost the exact same every time.
Now, does your laboratory have certain protocols for conducting these comparisons?
We have procedures for comparison, yes, like taking photographs, yes.
Well, but also procedures for instance, you have a document called Examination and Comparison of Unfired and Fired Ammunition and Components that deals specifically with the procedures to be followed for the kind of examination you did here, correct?
Yes, I believe that refers to the minimal documentation necessary for a piece of evidence.
And one of those standard operating procedure requirements is document observations and evaluate for the potential of subclass characteristics on the relevant tool working surface, right?
Correct, yes.
And you did that in this case, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay. And what conclusions did you reach?
Can I refer to my notes,
Yes,
please?
please.
My subclass assessment that's on page 13 of my report states, stria observed in the land and groove impressions contain starts and stops, are not coarse, and vary in their height, width, depth, and spatial arrangement. No apparent subclass influence.
Okay. And what page was that again?
Page 13.
Page 13. Let me ask you about that. The striae observed are not coarse, I think I understand that, and vary in their height, width, depth, and spatial arrangement. Did you?
By the way, I appreciate your criticism. AK, you say your podcast is good to point out the facts first and patience in seeing all evidence, but being subjected to lies, media, TV, government leaders gives a real sense of drought. Look, I think in a sense we should put some trust into the justice system, not entirely. We should question everything. This is a must. You need to view these things through a clear head, a clear mind. And the only truth that will prevail above everything is indeed the scriptures, God's word. You can have a clear lens here when you have the scriptures to compare with how humanity is, how governments are, how corrupt things can be, how things can be corrupted very easily. So you don't just believe everything, especially the media, definitely not the media. This is why we have mediums and, individual journalists, independent journalists, podcasters, often where people get their resources from rather than mainstream media, which a lot of people distrust, especially because of COVID-19. That really revealed a lot within the church, within, media, within government. But Jolly, you say, actually, the only people that death comes easy to are those on the left. They worship the death of Charlie Kirk and the millions of innocents sacrificed in the womb. And I can 100% agree with you on that statement. It's easy because to the left, to those who are fundamentally, position themselves and the democratic movement is that they don't believe in a God. The fact that they don't believe in a God, they don't believe in morality. They don't believe in morality, they believe in the collective conscience, the collective morality, collective understanding of how we are to conduct ourselves in society. And so there's no moral standard above their own standard. They can dictate whether something is good and whether something is bad. And despite for the person who holds the worldview of the scriptures, the Bible, the scriptures dictate above everything. There's the moral standard, and then there's the societal standard that God lays out through the Old Testament, even leading into the New Testament. There's example after example after example, even people that have stood up against governments that were tyrannical. So yes, the New Testament, you can point out scriptures where Paul says to be subjected, or I think it's Paul or Peter, be subjected unto the rulers or the leaders. But even then you see Peter, who is standing up against the rulers in his day, the leaders in his day that hold positions in authority in society. Daniel's a perfect example of this. Many of the prophets that had often stood up to or were bold in their faith or were even saved by simply the simple fact of that they were saved because of God preserving their life before kings and before whoever. Daniel is a perfect example of that.
Measure the height, width, depth of the land and groove impressions?
The land and groove impression widths, yes, I did.
And how about the striae? That's different than the land and groove impression, right?
Correct, yes.
You didn't measure the height, width, and depth of those marks, correct?
No, I did not.
Okay. And your protocol says, does it not?
I feel like I've heard that quote recently, Brian. You say, as someone once said, sin feels like freedom until you try to quit it. Then it doesn't feel like freedom. I could 100% relate to that. I think there's this temptation by Satan who tempts you with this idea that just do the sin, just commit to the sin. It's fine. God's going to forgive you anyway. But we know that's not the truth. We know that it puts us into bondage. 100% the scriptures back up this sort of thought here. You say it speaks volumes how many people struggle to think critically and discern credible information from misinformation. 100%. That is where our social media has really targeted specific individuals, where one person is getting one type of algorithm, another person is getting another type of algorithm based on their search history. We know this to be true from how China has conducted their operations with with TikTok, and how they are seeking to utilize that information. We saw this with Russia, what Russia was doing with X, and many other accounts that are foreign accounts that they supposedly say that they're, America first. And these are foreign accounts based in Europe, in UK, wherever, creating this misinformation within America. Possibly bots even.
Did you inspect the interior of this barrel?
I did, yes.
And did you notice whether it had any debris or dust in it?
I believe my notes state that debris and dust was observed in the inside of the barrel, yes.
Okay, and could you further characterize what that was? Debris?
I think it says dust, so I would say
dust. What can cause dust to get inside of a barrel?
A plethora of things. I'm not sure why something is ever in a barrel.
Okay. So you determined here, you ruled out subclass characteristics, correct?
Yes.
Then the next part of the examination was determining whether you had any individual characteristics on the bullet, correct?
Yes.
And what did you conclude in that regard?
That there were microscopic marks of value worthy of comparison, or yes, individual characters.
And by the way, I hope you're not being sarcastic here with your comment saying, and our phones are listening to us with whatever we do or say, which why I think you're being sarcastic is because the laugh out loud at the end of your sentence. But yes, you can talk about a lawnmower, and you might even be, you might even have an ad pop up about a lawnmower. You could talk about Lowe's, you can talk about, these other companies that eventually your phone will say, hey, let's pump this out to him. This is what we want to push out. This is what advertisers pay for. This is what data brokers pay for. They pay for this data so they can then sell you on whatever.
Your standard number of test fires?
Our standard operating procedures state that you need at least 2. There is not a maximum number that we are allowed to do. It's the discretion of the examiner.
Were you informed by
I
other
appreciate
investigators
your
working
comment, though, Grim Destroyer. You say you're being serious. Love it. Very true. It's proven. Everybody knows this.
You did not review a report from an ATF agent who investigated that issue?
No, I don't believe so, no.
In doing your examinations, is it important to know something about the manufacturing process of the weapon?
It is helpful to know how a barrel or any part of the firearm is manufactured, yes.
And why is that?
Certain manufacturing techniques will lend to that individual characteristics.
By the way, I appreciate your criticism there. You say, why don't you just play the trial and then just pause? Which, yes, I'll try to do more of that rather than just sort of letting it play. But you say Snowden told us our TVs are watching as well. TVs have a very interesting technology within them that even satellites that can, there's some crazy technology that certain airplanes that gather data can utilize television sets in order to capture information. We have smart devices everywhere. Smart devices that can literally hear and listen to anything we are. You're going to be pushed in algorithm. You're watching, something of Charlie Kirk, you're going to get more of Charlie Kirk videos. You're watching something of, Candace Owens, you're going to get plenty of Candace Owens content. People like Candace Owens, the Nick Fuentes types, the Tucker Carlson types. You watch videos about Israel, you're going to get videos about anti-Israel this, anti-Israel that. Then you get videos as to, there's no sort of balance it's not a randomized algorithm for you. All your social media is tailored, and we all know this. This is not like a conspiracy theory. So despite that, the technology is at a place where even somebody like Elon Musk is warning us about AI and the types of, and the direction that it could go. We could find ourselves in a place where AI is so far advanced to where we will be put in a position to where, even then he wants to implement a universal basic income because of what AI will do to the job space. We've talked about that, and I think he has a good sort of point of view as to why he wants to do that. So I think a good heart behind it. I don't know if that's even the correct term, good heart, but he believes that, jobs that will begin to be replaced by AI should indeed be those who are paid to, paid with this UBI. Or even then, there should be positions that open up in order to fulfill the roles that AI can't. But we also have, the conversations concerning what AI can't replace.
So grinding is a method that is known to leave individual characteristics on a tool. So if an item that I receive, I can tell is finished or manufactured by grinding, it already gives me an indication that individual characteristics would be left from that tool to the tool mark.
Now, once you have your 6 test fires, then you did some comparison between the test fires, right?
That is correct, yes.
And why do you do that?
That establishes whether or not there are individual reproducible marks of value on the test fires. It's important to know that because if there's not reproducibility amongst the test fires, then there's a chance to say, it's not going to reproduce on the evidence and I wouldn't have anything to compare it to.
And have you had cases where you fired the 6 test fires and you don't get reproducible marks?
Not that I can recall.
And when you do your comparisons, just looking at the test fires, do you get situations where there's some dissimilarities between those 2 fired bullets from your test fires?
Yes, there are at times there'll be there will be disagreement amongst the individual characteristics, even in test fires. You have to think of it as when a bullet travels down a barrel or a cartridge case interacts with a firearm, the marks aren't going to be left onto that item the same way 100% of the time. It's almost like a stamp. If you know you're using a stamp and you put it in ink and then you put it on two separate.
And by the way, someone mentioned earlier in the chat about the soft point, these expanding jacket rounds, basically allowing for the ability to show, designed to expand on entry and have much higher likelihood of leaving no exit wound, rather than something like an FMJ or PowerPoint round. And so this is, somebody points this out in the chat about these soft rounds. A very good data point there. And of course, you're going to get social media people going, really everybody's analyzing this with just, with a very critical eye. I'm looking through some of these social media posts just to, interesting.
Might look a little different just from the way the stamp was placed. It's the same thing with a bullet traveling down a barrel or a cartridge case coming into contact with a firearm.
So even when you know a bullet is fired from the same weapon, you can have 6 bullets fired, and when you start comparing them, you will see differences between each bullet.
There is a possibility to see some areas of disagreement. However, if I'm rendering an identification and saying there is reproducible individual marks of value on these test fires, there will be an overwhelming amount of sufficient agreement of that individual characteristic.
Now, when you're doing these comparisons, you use something called the AFTE theory of identification, don't you?
Yes, the AFTE theory of identification.
All right. And
we've got a really intelligent chat here. I like the back and forth. Brian, you say technology will be the helicopter moms of our lives, doing everything for us instead of teaching us. Now, it is true that we're living in an age where it's quite interesting that the scriptures talk about in the last days that we'll see knowledge increase. Many will run to and fro about the earth, and knowledge will increase. This is a warning that is given to Daniel to seal up the book, because it is not for his time. It is for the time of the end. And so we do see a rapid increase, not only in knowledge, but of course, knowledge in the scriptures. But we're seeing a lack of prudence in our society, a lack of common sense in more modern terms, where we're relying on social media, we're relying on AI tools to get us the answers we need, and we want it quickly. The problem with, again, those types of people who rely on information like this, we begin to become a dumber society. We have more answers, we have more knowledge, but we don't have prudence, we don't have wisdom in order to apply said wisdom. Knowledge is good, but how you use it is most certainly the very best argument there concerning how society should operate, using prudence, using wisdom, using knowledge. Using knowledge and wisdom goes hand in hand. B.J. Williams, you say, who wrote the Bible? The Bible was scribed by men, but inspired by God. The scriptures are clear about this in the book of Timothy, that all scripture is, let me get the actual verse for you. All scripture is given and inspired by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. Knowing this, first, that no prophecy of the scripture is of any private interpretation. This is Peter saying this. This is in John. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He that eateth bread with me hath likely lifted up his feet against me. It's not even relevant to what we're discussing here concerning the scripture, but all scripture is given by inspiration of God. That is important to understand. In a newer translation, ESV, it says all scripture is breathed out by God. And so, yes, although people go back to this argument of scripture is written by man, and we have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of documents that are scribed by men, but we truly see that when the scriptures are applied and put into practice, we see that there is true, there is evidence as to God's word being true, not only because when people actually apply it, when people test it, and when people, examine the history of the Bible that corroborates with archaeological evidence concerning biblical stories, then we're game, right? Because we're talking about a common data point that people like to go back to and say, well, the Bible was written by men. Yes, but God inspired, meaning you can even say possessed over these men to write the very words that they are to write. In some instances, you see in the book of Jude, Jude is, he says at the beginning of his, of the book that he begins to write, that he sought to write about something in particular. However, the Holy Spirit led him to write something else. He says here, let me see if I can go through some of the scripture. It says in Jude, beloved, although I was very eager to write to you about our common salvation, I found it necessary to write appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. The reasoning behind this switch is that he was eager. Okay, this word here, like we look at the word itself, that he sought to write something else completely, but was moved in the Holy Spirit in order to write to the people about a more important piece of information that needs to be delivered to the believers. Says, I found it necessary to write appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. For certain people have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were designated for this condemnation. Ungodly people who pervert the grace of our God into sensuality and deny our Master and Lord Jesus Christ. Now I want to remind you, although you once fully knew it, that Jesus, who saved all people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe. Now he goes on to a complete different message because he was led based on what he mentions prior, that he was eager to write about something else. And diligence, hasten, these are some of the other words that are utilized here. He wanted to write about this, but was inspired to write about the more weightier matters. You say religion is just primitive superstition. There is no God. Well, you can actually test the scriptures for yourself. You can see exactly how true they are, not only with the prophetic scriptures that are mentioned. You see that these prophetic moments have been actually, that were prophesied, were fulfilled. And not only that, you see exactly how the scriptures are, as we read before, are benefit or for reproof, for correction, for people to live to a standard that is set by God, that is the moral standard that we are to abide by. The two greatest commands that Jesus gives us are to love God with all the mind, strength, and all your heart, your might, and to love your neighbor as yourself. On these two hang all the law and the prophets. You follow these two commands, you follow everything else. We know that we are not perfect beings that can follow a law that is set by a standard by God. So thus we find ourselves in a position where we need salvation. There's a Savior that is presented to us, whether we choose to believe in him or not. There's a lot of different arguments concerning this. So I appreciate your rebuttals here, but you say there is no God. Well, then we can even look at the scientific realm. We talk about the realm of creation, how we got here. We look at time, space, and matter. That there is a force outside of time, space, and matter that created this, based on the evidence that we see in our world. And I'm trying to, anyway, there's a whole host of things that we can go over concerning this. And for folks that are still in here, please consider voting in the poll. We have 454 votes so far. Do you still believe Candace Owens' narrative? I think it's quickly falling apart, but we almost have a split poll here. And you say this kid is a moron. Well, you know what? I'm going to take God's word that he who had said there is no God is a fool. I'd rather believe his word than your word, because your word means nothing. There's no weight behind your word. You can try to say all day long that there is no God, but there is evidence all around us. And so you hold to that standard, well, then you say religion does not set moral standards. You believe, which I'm guessing is a collective moral standards, a collective moral set of standards. Then we find ourselves in a realm of, well, what is good? What is bad? Based on what we all believe. Well, I believe this is good, right? People can say, well, killing babies in the womb. Well, they call them fetuses, but it's the same thing. You look at the Latin, what this actually means. It still means baby. You talk about people saying that is inherently good. It's a good thing for women to practice or to, practice their rights. Okay. How are we trying to justify the murder of an unborn child? It's the same argument that we always go back to and say, well, because they're not viable outside the womb, where they're not able to, they have to rely on someone else to take care of it. Well, what about the Alzheimer's, the elderly that can't take care of themselves? Do we just eliminate them? The arguments begin to fall apart really quick. And even then we have scripture, ancient scripture, that talks about scientific things that we only discovered more recently. Talk about Orion's belt that is mentioned in the book of Job, the oldest book in the Bible, that God talks about specific scientific things that we discovered later, but they were in the scriptures all along. You even talk about adultery. You can go through the science as to how adultery is bad for the individual person, that it actually attacks their liver. I think I think the word is liver in the scriptures. In the Psalms, it's like you're stabbing yourself in the gut or in the liver. I think it mentions. And there's scientific evidence that proves that adultery is bad for an individual. And yet God says this in his scripture. And you say the Bible is a survival guide of action. Men in prison die each year because of sepsis, and there's only one act that causes that. The Bible is basic instructions before leaving Earth. That is something that we must... Anyway, you say Candace Owens went full retard. You say Candace is crazy, and I feel disgusted by her using Charlie Kirk's death for her own publicity. And this is what it's come down to, sadly.
Take a look. And that's the standard that you used in this case to draw the conclusions that you made in the report that I showed you earlier, correct?
That is the theory stating how an examiner is able to come to a conclusion when examining 2 or more sets of tool marks. And yes, that is how I go through my examination and how I come up with my conclusion, yes.
Okay. And what is AFTI?
AFTI is the Association of Firearm and Toolmark Examiners. It's the governing body of the firearm and toolmark community, whose primary goal is to further research and continue to show information about manufacturing and the evolution of firearm and toolmark examination. They hold annual seminars, publish a glossary of terminologies used by the firearm community, and they also have a peer-reviewed published journal.
Peer-reviewed published journal. Can I join AFTI?
You can, most of the firearms community, or excuse me, members are firearm and toolmark examiners. There are also technical advisors and associate members. Those members are not usually firearm and toolmark examiners, but they still have a livelihood in firearm and toolmark examination, meaning they conduct research or they are involved in products or manufacturing. And anybody is allowed to come to the annual seminar or get the journal. You just have to pay the fee.
You just have to pay the fee. Okay. Could you display to the witness Exhibit 27, please? Do you recognize what's displayed here?
It appears to be the AFTI theory of identification, yes.
All right, I move that into evidence, Your Honor.
What is it?
This is the standard that she used to make the comparisons in this case, correct?
Would this be Carner 27
This would be Carner 27, Your Honor.
to the state?
Your Honor, if I may voir dire the witness on this exhibit, I've never seen it before, I don't think.
All right,
Sure.
let's go ahead and do so. Mr. McBride.
When was the last time you reviewed this document?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Can you testify as to its accuracy by looking at it now?
Not verbatim, no.
Your Honor, no more questions. My objection is lack of foundation.
Mr. Byrd.
That was quick.
Does this document accurately state what the theory is?
May I take a moment to read through
Yeah,
it?
sure.
I believe something, I think the first statement is different than what I can recall, but overall, it is what the AFTI theory states.
Okay. And your ATF protocol refers specifically to the AFTI theory of identification, does it not?
It does, yes.
Okay. So is there any difference between what's in 27 and what's in your manual?
Again, I don't remember without looking at them side by side.
Okay. Let me get that in front of you. Let's go to,
That was for you, dead man.
toward the end. It's document FT 10. No, that's not it. Could I quote your witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Page 103 of your protocol. I think what it's-
I recognize this as something that comes from our SOPs, yes.
Okay. And it refers to the AFTI theory of identification, right?
It does, yes.
Same theory that's displayed in 27?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd renew my offer on 27.
Your Honor, the objection stands. Language matters. Without knowing if this language is identical to what she's trained on, that can make a big difference. Whether the word sufficient or adequate is used, these are scientific principles.
These are wild. I accidentally made bananas and rice once on a mission trip, and it was the worst thing.
The exhibit that's been
My group
offered, so it should
ate.
not be received into evidence.
It's funny.
Mr. Burke.
Goes to weight, not admissibility. You'd be free to question her about any differences, but I think she's laid a foundation that the theory's the same, so.
All right. Well, I remind the parties that this is a probable cause finding, and so
This is
as
important.
it relates to what's been presented, the witness has said that it looks familiar. Again, I don't want to quote you, I don't remember the exact phrase, but she recognized portions of it and then was given the opportunity to compare it to her standard operating procedure. I think she said SOP. For those reasons, Carner 27
Yes.
is admitted and may be
Thank you.
published.
Yeah, I forgot to unmute it. Thanks, I appreciate it, guys. You say dead air. I forgot to unmute it when there was a bit of a portion where when I played the bananas and rice
It's kind of like
audio,
the bananas and rice.
right? And then I forgot to unmute it because that's kind of like a bananas and rice type of move there. And so again, the judge will continue to reiterate that this is a probable cause, not to, and so he's addressing this because the state and the defense continue to go back and forth. Well, mostly the defense, who's trying to, as they say, protect Tyler Robinson and his rights. But this is, gosh, the situation is, as we get to, well, we're now in today, if you're living on Pacific Standard Time, we are now on the final day of the preliminary hearings, where the judge will conclude, and all of this will either move forward to a trial, which there is overwhelming evidence of. And so we will be covering that on another broadcast. Thanks so much for joining us. There's so much still on this live show. This chat, what the Turning Point did was they completely went through all of they let it play through. It's 8 hours long. And so to endure all of this, I can't imagine Erica Kirk going through this again and again. And we see the slander continues on, even where we find Candace Owens, where if you still haven't gotten your vote in, let's do it finalized, and please consider subscribing to this podcast. Get your final votes in. Have you voted yet? Go for it. Like this show. Let's continue the momentum, and we'll be covering the final preliminary hearing for the Charlie Kirk case tomorrow. We'll be possibly talking about a plethora of other topics. But if you appreciated what we discussed today, even if you want to also send me a message, you can email me, freedomandequallyoakshow.com. And God bless you guys for sticking with me through this broadcast and commenting and letting me know your thoughts. We're going to conclude this poll here. Looks like nobody has voted since, but otherwise, glad you guys voted or partook in this poll here. We have just, almost a split decision as to if you still believe Candace Owens' narrative, and she will continue to push this narrative. Let us remind you as to who we're dealing with here. This is Erica Kirk. This is somebody who was even seen praying for somebody outside the courtroom. Let's take a listen to this clip.
In his chair, scratching his nose, looked uncomfortable with the text messages on the screen. Erica Kirk was looking down, leaning forward, not looking at the screen, showing the text. When they got to the part about Lance asking Tyler in the text, does he need the rifle for...
What's going on here?
Does he need the rifle for hunting, that kind of stuff? That's when Erica audibly began crying. Tyler's mom was also crying at that point, not audibly. She was wiping her eyes. Charlie's mom had her hand on Erica's upper arm, shoulder. They're both tearful. Just getting some of the action inside the courtroom there as all of this unfolds. And you can imagine for Erica Kirk to hear all of this just has to be devastating, again, because it's just like right back in her face again.
That's right. I mean, she's reliving the most traumatic experience that someone could potentially go through. And against the backdrop of people who are attempting to profit off of this situation by spreading
Candace
lies
Owens.
and outrageous theories. In the aggregate, it doesn't really get much worse than what she's going through.
So this is what we're dealing with. The constant lies and the attacks of Charlie Kirk and his family. It's wild. Consider subscribing to the podcast. Like the show. Email me your thoughts, freedomanequallyyokeshow.com. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be discussing this tomorrow, Lord willing, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you. Peace.
Ago.
In America.
But sometimes the difficult road is the way that you might come up to the microphone and say, Charlie, I don't know my talent. I don't know my skill. The cool thing about being courageous is you just have to say, I choose to be courageous. You are doing something that is bigger than you.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life.